A scoreless ball game between Chicago and Oakland, and here's a look at the starting lineup that Tony La Russa will show the Chicago White Sox tonight. Ricky Henderson leading things off. He's the left fielder. Then it's Willie Wilson, Jose Canseco, and Harold Baines. Mark McGwire will lead this inning off. He'll be followed by Jamie Quirk, Carney Lansford, Mike Bordick, and Lance Blankenship. The second baseman bats ninth.
Checking the defense of the Chicago White Sox, Gold Glove winner Robin Ventura at third, Ozzie Guillen at short, Steve Sachs at second, and Frank Thomas at first, with Tim Raines, Lance Johnson, and Donnie Pasqua in the outfield, with Ron Karkovice replacing the injured Carlton Fisk, and Alex Fernandez on the hill.
And Mark McGwire jumps on the first offering for Fernandez and drops it over the wall in left field. McGwire's second home run in as many days.
Well, Mark McGwire is absolutely sizzling. After a terrible 1991 season, he hit .453 in the spring. This is his second home run in 2 days. He's off to a terrific start. He is really using his hands. He and Doug Rader, the batting coach, went back to the drawing table this winter, and McGwire is really out of the chute quickly in 1992. He is so much quicker with his hands right now.
Well, Alex Fernandez gives up the home run. He allowed 16 last year, but he had a great deal of success with these Oakland A's, and he is behind 1-0. And here is Jamie Quirk, the catcher, who takes a breaking ball up high, ball one. Fernandez last year, well, he went 2-2 and against the Oakland A's, and two of his best games in his career were against Oakland last year. Quirk jumps on a fastball, and he rifles it deep to right field, and this one's out of here.
Back-to-back by a couple of the big boys of the A's. Jamie Quirk had one home run last year. Yeah, it was against Alex Fernandez. He has one this year. I guess he thinks Alex is his cousin. Jamie Quirk gets that low and in pitch and just drives it into the seats.
And now it's Carney Lansford, and he just sends one down the line. Looks like extra bases. In the corner is Timmy Raines, and Lansford goes cruising into second base with a double. So here to start the bottom of the second, McGwire homers, Quirk homers, and now Lansford with a shot to left.
Thing about it, Alex Fernandez had an excellent first inning. Pitching coach Jackie Brown of the Chicago White Sox is going to come out and have a talk with a 22-year-old youngster, but he had a terrific first inning. All of a sudden he comes out here, McGwire really rattled him with the home run on the first pitch of the inning, and then Quirk, and now Alex Fernandez kind of in a quandary of what's going on. And I think Jackie Brown just saying, hey, your location is not good right now. You're getting the ball in the middle of the plate.
Well, he is a young man, Alex Fernandez, just 22 years old. He won't even turn 23 until August, so he is really learning in the major leagues. He was drafted in 1990 and put right into the Chicago rotation. Struggled a bit last year with a record of 9-13 and a 4.5 earned run average, but they feel this is going to be one of the marvelous pitchers in the American League's future. Here is Mike Bordick, and he will bunt Lansford to third. It rolls foul.
You know, everybody talks about the A's being the Bash brothers, and of course they are. They're famous for Canseco and McGwire and Harold Baines and people like that. But Tony La Russa's clubs know how to play little baseball as well. They're annually amongst the leaders in sacrifice bunts. They have guys who know their roles. Mike Bordick, Lance Blankenship, guys like that are expected to move runners along into scoring position. Bordick's also done a terrific job of hitting in clutch situations in the early going this year. He had a great series in the Bay Bridge series against the Giants. It's carried over. A's and White Sox both off to outstanding starts this year.
There you get .455 in that 3-game sweep with the Kansas City Royals Monday through last night. Bordick tries to get it down as well. Fernandez only play first base. And there's one out, but they moved Lansford to third.
Well, Lansford didn't go, but all of a sudden he saw second base unoccupied, so he took a huge lead at second base. Alex Fernandez never bothered to look at Carney Lansford. Then all of a sudden, when Fernandez threw to first, Lansford just waltzed into third base. Bad fundamentals by Alex Fernandez, and Carney Lansford got away with one there. Watch Carney. He just freezes in his tracks here, but you have the shortstop going over to cover third. Lansford frozen, but Alex Fernandez doesn't even look at him. Look at him. So now Lansford says, heck, I'm going on to third base, and Frank Thomas has no play.
What are Karkovice's responsibilities in that play?
He just basically said, take a look at look the runner back. He got plenty of time. He probably went one, but it's still, the catcher calls 1, 2, or 3 to what base he wants the pitcher to throw to. But Alex still has to know enough to look at the runner in that situation.
Well, here's Lance Blankenship. He laid down a beautiful squeeze bunt to score a run against Kansas City yesterday. And Mark McGwire jumped all over him in batting practice today because Blankenship came out in the paper saying that the grounds crew tailored the infield. And Mark said, wait a second, you can't go out of the clubhouse with statements like that. That's our home field advantage. And I said, Mark, Kangaroo Court, is that a $2 fine? He says, $2, that's a $100 fine.
Ooh, Blankenship, not one of those guys making the big money. He certainly have enough of those. Advanced scouting report by the White Sox said the same thing you did, Steve, that they squeezed yesterday. So Gene Lamont wanted to take a look at least on one pitch to see if maybe that was in the works again.
2-0. The A's in front on back-to-back home runs by McGwire and Quirk here in the second. And there is a ground ball hit hard to Ozzie Guillen. He looks the man back to third and throws out Blankenship. 2 outs. Ozzie Guillen, he has won a Gold Glove in his past. Beaten out last year by Cal Ripken Jr., the Baltimore Orioles. But he is as splendid to watch as they are. Shortstops in the major leagues, and here's Ricky Henderson. Reached on a little infield hit where he was fooled in the first inning, stole a couple of bases, so he now has 997 career stolen bases. And the first pitch by Fernandez, like he started him in the first inning, breaking ball on the outside corner for strike one.
Ricky Henderson will take the first pitch statistically about 89% of the time. So if you can get ahead of him with a strike, you're starting off on a good foot, because Ricky, of course, so dangerous, be it the base on balls and with the long ball threat.
Ground ball Guillen. The A's do their damage with a couple of solo home runs. McGwire hits his second. Quirk hits his first. It's 2-0 Oakland. Chopper over Strzelczyk's head, and Bordick with a wide throw, and Johnson's off for second base. Bordick, who has played marvelous shortstop this year, throws a wild one past Mark McGwire.
Well, Mark really has played well, but this is the threat of the speed. Bordick knows that Lance Johnson can fly down the line, may have hurried the throw just a tad, and McGwire can't come up with it. You see Lance hot-footing it to first, and again, that threat of the speed sometimes gets infielders to hurry their plays. Mistakes, and Lance Johnson will be at second. A two-base throwing error by Mike Bordick.
And Bordick is playing shortstop because of the injury to Walt Weiss. He suffered a rib injury in spring training, and they thought he was ready to go, but they said, no, let's not test a guy who has been hurt the last 3 years. So Walt went on the 15-day disabled list. He is eligible to come off in the 12th, and Bordick, who is in battling Blankenship and Brosius at second base, getting the start at short. Johnson in scoring position. He represents the tying run. Oakland up 2-1. We're in the top of the third inning. And Guillen with a nice bunt left side. Strzelczyk no play. Runners in the corners and nobody out.
Really is an excellent play for a number of reasons, because first of all, Ozzie Guillen's natural stroke is to the opposite field. In that situation with nobody out, he wants to be able to try to pull the ball on the right side of the diamond to get Johnson to third. But Ozzie knows he can't really pull the ball when he wants to, so he decides to drop the bunt down, and it is a honey. Not only was he trying to move the man along, but this is so good, gets a base hit out of it to boot. And the White Sox, who were trailing 2-0 to start the inning, are storming back.
Karkovice started the inning with a home run. Lance Johnson reached on the air by Bordick, and now Guillen with the bunt single. Corners, nobody out, and here's Tim Raines. He started well, 307 average. Fouled off and showing that Walt Briniak style stroke. There's a man who had 301 in the National League, just 268 last year, and many people were surprised that he adapted Walt's stroke right away.
Well, one of the things Timmy Raines did in the National League, I saw him for 10 years, was he always kept his head on the ball. A little more exaggerated now, but he hasn't changed as much as people think. You know, you and I were talking to Tim in the clubhouse before the game because I had seen an article where he said it really took him a long while to adjust to American League pitching. He says, hey, I'm getting changeups on 3-1 and breaking balls on 2-0. National League, they just would pound you with fastballs. But he said, I made the adjustment as the season went on. You know, that 268, not too bad when you consider he only hit 135 in the month of April last year. So the rest of the year, he was pretty near his normal numbers.
Well, he's behind the count. No balls, 1 strike. Fades away. 1 ball and 1 strike. And remember that comment from Tim Raines after that horrible month of April last year. He said, you know, in this league, the count runs 3-0, and 5 years later it's 3-2, and you're still trying to find a pitch to drive.
But the Yankees Tigers go about 325 tonight. about normal.
One pitch, and Raines rifles it into right field. In comes Lance Johnson to tie the game.
Well, one of the many axioms in baseball, but one that pitchers try to live by, is once your team has gone out and given you the lead, it's very important the next inning for you to go out and hold down the opposition to maintain your club's momentum. Obviously, Sluzarski has not done that. All of a sudden now the White Sox have bounced back to tie it at 2. Still nobody out and runners at the corner as Tim Raines got the bat head out, even though the ball tied him up a little bit inside.
Top of the 3rd inning here in Oakland, California, a 2-2 ball game, and you begin to wonder about Joe Sluzarski. You know, he had the great beginning of spring, and then he was affected by that jumping cholla cactus when he was playing golf and got nailed in the right hand in his right middle finger, and it ballooned up. He had trouble throwing the changeup, the fork ball. He felt fine on Sunday in the Bay Bridge series, but gave up 6 runs, the most that he had given up all spring against the San Francisco Giants. He gets a breaking ball across to Steve Sachs, who knocked a base hit off of Joe to start that 1st inning.
Of course, this is one of the big acquisitions by the White Sox. They had 2 holes offensively and filled them both with Sachs at second base and then getting George Bell to come in and hit behind Frank Thomas to give him some protection. So there's very few holes offensively in that White Sox lineup.
Runner going, and the pitch will roll into center field. Here comes Guillen. He will score, and the White Sox have their first lead, 3-2, as Raines rolls onto 3rd base.
Well, Steve, in the top of the 1st inning, the White Sox, the A's made 2 great defensive plays. One by Carney Lansford, another with Quirk throwing out, Steve Sachs running. But in this inning, the A's, who had not made an error in the previous 3 games, come up with 2 errors. Jamie Quirk's throw should have been knocked down by Blankenship. Lance, I don't know why he didn't keep that ball from going into center field. That ball's got to at least be stopped.
Blankenship filling in for a guy who was a Gold Glove candidate last year, Mike Gallego. So Raines is at 3rd base now, still nobody out, and the 5th man to hit in this inning, Steve Sachs, standing in there at the count, 1 ball, 1 strike, and he goes after the breaking ball low and away, but swings and misses. It's 1-2.
You're keeping score with us. Raines gets the stolen base, run scores, and Raines goes to 3rd on the throwing error by Jamie Quirk. So the A's, who had played flawless defense in their 3 victories over Kansas City, have self-destructed a bit here in the 3rd inning.
Jamie Quirk getting a start behind the plate tonight because of the injury to Terry Steinbach, who's also suffering from the flu, but Steiny bruised his hand in yesterday's game against Kansas City in the 1st inning. One-two to Sachs, and he whistles it to left field, but Henderson's right there to make the catch, tagging at 3rd and coming home Tim Raines, and it's now 4-2 Chicago.
Well, you love to have a guy like Steve Sachs up in that situation. 2nd toughest man in baseball last year to strike out. The infield was back conceding the run, so you just know the guy's going to make contact. The only guy that was tougher to strike out last year in the majors was Tony Gwynn. So Steve Sachs hits a rocket to left. White Sox have bounced back with 4 of their own here in the 3rd. They lead by 2.
And they've scored 4 runs. And the toughest part of their order is coming up. I mean, nobody's on base, but you think 4 runs. Well, it's got to be Ventura, Thomas, Bell, and Pasqua. But they have not even hit in this inning yet. And here is Robin Ventura. He was erased on a beauty of a play by Carney Lansford in the first inning to end that inning. It's great to see Carney coming all the way back from that terrible knee injury he suffered at the beginning of 1991. Foul out of play. A ball to strike. Robin Ventura, and what a year he had last year. 100 RBIs, a Chicago record for third baseman. But he did it in the 2 spot. You don't see that very often.
Of course, if you're going to see it, more apt to in the American League. Guys like Ozzie Guillen and Lance Johnson, 8 and 9 with good speed and also hitting about 270 apiece. Although we did mention their on-base percentage wasn't that good. Steve, the year before, Robin Ventura was last in the American League in slugging percentage. And in 1 year, he goes to hitting 20-plus home runs and knocking in 100 runs.
Breaking ball misses low. Well, he had that incredible month of July with the 12 home runs. And how many RBIs? Just a few shy of Dick Allen's?
Yeah, I think he was 33, 34 RBIs in the month of July. 12 home runs in a month was the most by any player of any month last year.
Here's the 2-2 by Joe Slazarski. Ground ball. Tough play for Carney Lansford. Bare hands and throws. Not in time.
Well, the White Sox are hitting him hard. They're hitting him soft, but they're hitting him in the right places. Lansford virtually no chance on that one. He took a base hit away from Ventura his previous time up, but Robin gets a little topper down the third base side. Pretty good sinker away from him, but Lansford no chance.
And that takes us to big Frank Thomas. Lansford robbed Ventura his first time up. This time, Robin beats out the base hit. Checks his swing, a little looper down the line. McGuire can't catch it.
Well, Slazarski went away from Frank Thomas. The general rule of thumb on Frank Thomas is to try to pound him hard inside. I mean, just stay in. Now, if you don't have a good fastball, don't be coming in there with that weak stuff, because he'll turn it around in a minute. But he loves to get the arms out. Very disciplined, 138 walks last year. And if you stay inside too long, he'll finally make the adjustment. But I think you just got to pound inside and then go real soft down and away, but make sure it's out of the strike zone.
Sounds like Mayo Smith.
Wow.
Way inside.
That's where you pound him. I would tell the Mayo Smith story, but it takes so long to tell, there's no way.
You pitch him way inside or way outside.
You got it. Anyway, Slazarski running it in on Thomas's hands.
And he hit him. And Frank staring out at Joe Slazarski, but Slazarski was certainly not trying to hit Frank Thomas, as he has struggled throughout this inning, and he will face the 8th man, George Bell.
Well, he certainly came inside. Of course, there's no love lost between these two teams. Last year, Bobby Thigpen hit Terry Steinbach in the head, and there's not a lot of love lost between these two clubs. This one drills Thomas right in the shoulder. But Big Frank kind of leans into the pitch. He strides in, and about the only place you can pitch him is hard stuff in, but you got to throw strikes in there or make it borderline, and Slazarski was way off the plate inside.
Well, Dave Duncan just sent a couple of pitchers out to the bullpen, and will come out and visit with Joe Slazarski as well. And he's trying to right himself, as you see Gene Nelson warming in the Oakland bullpen. He is healthy after a troublesome 1991. First game of last year, he took a foul shot off of his pitching hand in the Oakland dugout and was lost for much of the season. There's one of the top pitching coaches in all baseball, Dave Duncan. He's been the right hand of Tony La Russa for many years.
I'll tell you, Dunk suffered through a long year last year. The A's 3 consecutive years had led the American League in lowest earned run average, and they went from #1 to number 13 last year. Only worse was Baltimore, and that was only by 2/100ths of a point.
White Sox have 2 on, only 1 out. And George Bell, the batter. Protection. They traded Sammy Sosa and Ken Patterson to the Chicago Cubs to get this man to protect Frank Thomas. And he has done just that. He had a big day yesterday in their victory over the California Angels 7-6 as George went 3 for 5 with his first home run as a White Sox. 4-2. The White Sox have the lead. They have scored all 4 of the runs here in the 3rd inning. Ventura's at second base. Thomas at first. Breaking ball misses. Balls, no strikes.
You know, Steve, talking about that earned run average of the A's, no team since 1920 after winning a pennant has had such a major drop in earned run average, or rise if you want to, as the A's went from 3.18 to 4.57. They actually scored more runs last year than they did the year before, but they gave up 206 more runs. Pitching was decimated by injuries, and the guys that were healthy just didn't pitch very well.
Well, the A's used a club record 23 pitchers last year, and 9 of them were rookies. So you're asking for trouble. I mean, it started before the season with Rick Honeycutt, then went to Gene Nelson game 1, and everybody fell apart. And then your A's, Dave Stewart has his worst season in years. 3 balls, no strikes to George Bell. Slazarski 1 pitch away of walking the bases loaded. And who have they added this year? They've gone away from the rookies and the young guys like Joe Slazarski, and they've gotten, well, there's Goose Gossage. Bob Welch is healthy again. Ron Darling joined the staff late.
Darling gave this club a big lift yesterday after a 13-inning game the night before. Darling went 8 1/3, had the Kansas City Royals shut out until the 9th inning. So Darling pitched an excellent ball game yesterday for the A's.
And he says his curveball really feels much more comfortable. And the late break we saw with the New York Mets on all of his pitches coming back. Bell has the count 3-1 with 2 on. 1 out, 4 runs already in. And a little check swing past Slazarski. Only played first base, and Blankenship gets Bell there. But the runners move up. Ventura to third and Thomas to second base.
Figure you might want to walk Danny Pasqua here to get to Karkovice. Even though Karkovice hit the home run, you might want to play percentages, walk the strong left-handed batter, and go after Karkovice, the right-handed batter. But we'll wait and see on that.
There's Dan Pasqua. 18 home runs last year. That was a career best. Also had career highs in RBIs with 66. Runs scored 71. And Slazarski starts him off with a breaking ball that drops out of the strike zone, but Dan can't hold up. And strike 1.
Of course, the ideal thing in this type of situation is if you have a veteran pitcher, somebody you really trust to throw the ball where they want to, you would say, well, I'll let him pitch to Pasqua a few pitches, see if he can get him to chase some borderline pitches. But with a young guy, I think that's asking too much, although Pasqua did chase a bad delivery by Slazarski. Bad in the sense it was out of the strike zone.
Here's the 0-1. Fastball tails away. It's 1 ball, 1 strike. Ventura at third base. He reached on the infield hit. Frank Thomas at second. He was hit by a pitch. And here's the 1-1. And Pasqua rips it. And McGuire with the stab. The race to the bag. McGuire wins to get out of the inning. But the White Sox score 4 in their half of the 3rd to take the lead on the Oakland A's and that man Joe Slazarski.
You can see Tommy Lasorda burning in the Dodger dugout. San Diego leads at 3-1. Island, the 64th player in Major League history to homer in his first Major League at bat. I wonder if Dave Campbell's on that list, Steve.
Absolutely not, although he did homer at old Jack Murphy Stadium when the walls were high and they were farther back. It is a 4-2 ball game, and the Oakland A's down by 2 to the Chicago White Sox. Willie Wilson will lead things off. And he will be followed by Jose Canseco and then Harold Baines. On the year, you see Willie's numbers didn't play yesterday. They put in Mike Kingery against Mark Gubazov, the Kansas City Royals, his old team. Dave Island went deep for the San Diego Padres in his first major league at bat. And Tom Mee's question, Dave, was, did you do that in your first at bat?
Did I do it in my first?
What was your first at bat? What did you do?
Struck out against Frank Berthet, but my first hit was a home run. But I was 0 for 7 up to the time I got it.
Doesn't matter.
I always remember that first at bat.
Willie Wilson down the line. Looks like extra bases. He'll race around second, but hold on there.
Willie Wilson, the all-time active career leader in triples, was thinking about it, but good policing in the right field corner by Dan Pasqua got the ball back in, and Wilson had to hold on with a double.
Well, I remember his days. Nothing more exciting than watch Willie Wilson go from home to third.
He can still fly. Kind of ironic this time, Willie Wilson can pull the ball to right field. The last time he had Ricky Henderson on at second base with nobody out, and he had 3 consecutive foul balls off to the left side. You see Willie thinking about it, coming around second, but puts on the brakes as Pascal gets it back in. Cardinal rule is you don't want to make the first or third out at third base, and Wilson leading off didn't want to get thrown out.
Well, it looks like he's taken off about 5 years. He shaved off his beard. But he's at second base, and here's the tying run coming to the plate. Jose Canseco, and Fernandez starts him off with ball 1.
Well, we talked about Jamie Quirk maybe being the cousin of Alex Fernandez, and the fact that he's hit 2 home runs in the last 2 years, both against Fernandez. But Jose Canseco is 1 for 13 lifetime against Alex with 9 strikeouts.
And there's a breaking ball hit on the ground. Tough play for Guillen, but he throws out Canseco by 2 steps. Let's check in with Tom Mees.
All right, Steve. Last night, the Reds blew a big lead and lost the game in 13 in Houston. They tried to do the same tonight. They led this game 8-3. Bases loaded, nobody out. Jeff Bagwell off the top of the wall. It's in play. 1 run is in. And Craig Physioc tries to come in, too. But no. And that out was the big play as the Reds hang on 8-5. Back to Steve in Oakland.
Well, we talk about the Cardinal rule. Don't get thrown out at third base with nobody out or with 2 outs. Don't get thrown out at the plate when you're 3 runs behind either.
Well, here's Harold Baines, and that has to be a huge sigh of relief for Norm Charlton, who blew a 5-1 lead for Greg Swindell last night at the Astrodome. And Charlton walked 4 in that contest, and the Astros were able to pull it out. Baines jumping on a breaking ball, drives it to Lance Johnson. Wilson tagging and racing for third, and he will beat the throw. And with 2 gone, Wilson's at third base. And to the plate is Mark McGwire. Last time he faced Alex Fernandez, first pitch from him.
Again, Mark just using his hands. They just look so much quicker. Notice it in batting practice. Saw the tape of the home run he hit yesterday. He's using the hands. And one thing that he and Doug Rader have been concentrating on. You have to get that by observation, though, because neither one of them is talking about it.
I did have a chance to visit with Tony La Russa. And as a matter of fact, I visited with Mark about a month and a half ago, and I'm not quite sure why he's being so quiet, because he's very talkative that day back in February. I think they both kind of come to an agreement, Rader and McGwire, that, hey, let the results tell the story. But Mark told me a month and a half ago, I have been doing eye exercises, and I have been working with Doug Rader, but I also spend more time hitting the ball in the offseason and lifting the weights, one of Dave Campbell's favorite things. 2-0 is now 2-1. Well, speaking of lifting weights, there are a lot of guys who are going on the disabled list recently.
Well, let's see. How can I get all 26 trainers in the major leagues mad at me? Lifting weights doesn't help folks. All it does is get the tendons stretched to the point where you're pulling them like crazy. If you did, you know, everybody says, well, if you lift weights and do the stretching exercises, you're going to be okay. Well, it's obvious to me that the number of people going on the DL that either that theory is wrong, A, or B, they aren't doing the stretching exercises enough.
Here's the 2-1. Stays high, 3 balls, 1 strike.
Baseball is a game of flexibility, agility, and mobility. Is not necessarily a game of strength. some of the great home run hitters in baseball history. Kind of a guy like Al Kaline, nearly 400 home runs. The guy couldn't bench press 100 pounds probably.
3-2 to Mark McGwire. And to give you an idea how times have changed, there were more players in the disabled list last June, 66, than all of the 1970 season when Mr. Campbell was playing baseball. 52, and you weren't on the DL that year, were you?
Now, all I can tell you is guys like John Kruk that don't look too good in their uniforms, they don't go in the DL very much. They don't have those muscles taut and tight.
Well, McGwire walks on a fastball that missed the corner. So runners on the corners, 2 down for Jamie Quirk. And what did Jamie do his last at bat? He only hit 1 home run all last year, was off Alex Fernandez. So what does he do with Mr. Fernandez in the 2nd inning?
Don't throw left-handed hitters down and in. They just have to lay the bat of the ball. Jamie gets it right in the sweet spot, giving a little body English to make sure it stays fair, but it stays fair by a good 15 feet.
Well, here's Quirk with 2 outs. 4-2. Chicago has the lead. All 4 of the runs came in their half of the 3rd. And Quirk takes low ball 1. Wilson at 3rd. He doubled to start the inning. 2 outs later, McGwire walked. Breaking ball in there. 1-1.
The Babe used to be on weight training. Used to do those 12-ounce curls all the time.
I can't wait to see that movie. You and I should see that together.
John Goodman.
The Babe.
Goodman said, boy, it's really something when you got to lose 60 pounds to play the Babe. He did, too.
Fernandez with the 1-1 pitch now. He's going to check things as Willie Wilson was dancing down the line at 3rd base.
Kind of a cool night, normal night in Oakland. Alex Fernandez, until he signed to play pro baseball, had never pitched in a game where the temperature was below 60 degrees growing up in South Florida. Had a little trouble controlling his off-speed pitches. He couldn't get feeling in his fingers. I don't know if it's bothering him tonight or not. He did not have a good start last year either, but got much better as the weather got warmer.
He's falling behind on the count to Jamie Quirk. 2 balls, 1 strike. You see the chill in the air in the East Bay of California. Fastball fouled off, but it's even at 2 balls and 2 strikes. And it is always warm in San Diego, though, where we bring you the America's Cup on ESPN. Stars and Stripes versus America Cube. Tomorrow, that's 3 o'clock Eastern Time, live here on ESPN. Runners in the corners, and the payoff. Ooh, the fastball rests outside. It's full at 3 balls and 2 strikes.
Alex trying to keep the ball away from Quirk this time. Jamie fouled him off the left, just missed the outside edge. So McGwire will be off, should be able to score on a gapper if Jamie Quirk can find a seam in the outfield.
Wilson, tremendous speed at 3rd. McGwire, he's off and running, and Quirk down the line but foul.
You were telling me that Jamie Quirk learned how to catch under Gene Lamont.
Yes, I was visiting with Jamie before the ball game. He said, White Sox skipper, 78 with the Kansas City Royals. And it was Whitey Herzog who said, hey, why don't you learn how to catch? And I went back there and said, hey, this is great, Whitey. Why didn't you tell me back in 72 when you drafted me? Here he's with the 3-2. Breaking ball fouled off again.
Yeah, Gene Lamont was working in the Kansas City minor league organization at that time. Some parallels. I was just thinking about this today with Gene Lamont. He gets his first chance to manage in the major leagues with the White Sox. His mentor, Jim Leyland, also his best friend. Leyland, after 17 years in the minors, finally got his first break with the White Sox as a 3rd base coach. There's Lamont. Gene was in hiding. We were trying to find him, but he came out, clapping his hands there. Number 33. Gene Lamont, the new skipper of the White Sox. But Jim Leyland got his first big shot with the White Sox as a 3rd base coach under Tony La Russa. And Gene Lamont gets his first shot as a major league manager for the White Sox as well.
Fouls it off again. Out stays 3-2 with runners in the corners. And Fernandez Dave already with 51 pitches, and we're only in the 3rd inning.
Alex had a terrific first inning, but McGuire and Quirk go back-to-back in the 2nd, and he's been kind of struggling since.
White Sox first-round draft choice, 4th overall in 1990. And he has been force-fed into the major leagues. Growing up in the big time. Again, that 3-2 breaking ball is fouled off.
You were talking about the report on Sluzarski. Sometimes he gives in to hitters in certain situations. Right now, Alex Fernandez not giving in to Jamie Quirk. He's been feeding him fastballs away, and then a good curveball down and in. Especially for a guy whose confidence level is soaring after hitting a home run his first time up. Right now, Alex is doing his best to keep Quirk from doing any damage here.
Tying runs are on base. 4-2. Chicago has the lead. Bottom of the 3rd inning. And Quirk goes after another breaking ball. Guillen across the diamond. Ends the inning. White Sox out of it. And they hold on to that 4-2 lead over the Oakland A's.
ESPN's presentation of Major League Baseball is brought to you by Bud Dry. Dry brewed so it drinks life, yet satisfies completely.
Steve Physioc and Dave Campbell at Oakland Alameda County Coliseum, where the Chicago White Sox have a 4-2 lead on the Oakland A's. Both teams trying for their 4th straight win to start this 1992 campaign. A's coming off a 3-game sweep of the Kansas City Royals, and Chicago a 3 sweep of the California Angels. And they've got a beautiful crowd on hand tonight. Over 30,000. And Ron Karkovice, who started the 3rd inning with a long home run, will lead things off here. And Joe Sluzarski starts him off with a breaking ball for ball 1. Fastball in there. 1 ball, 1 strike.
Steve Karkovice is a guy who really got some great help when Walt Hriniak came over. The previous year before Hriniak came, Karkovice hit .071 in 85 major league at-bats with 40 strikeouts. He went to AAA and hit .163, and then Hriniak came along, and definitely a case where Walt helped this hitter. Ron Karkovice, a great defensive player, but I don't care how good you are defensively. If you hit .071, you're not going to play. But Hriniak's made him a respectable hitter. He also can do some other. He runs surprisingly well for a catcher, and he's also a pretty darn good bunter. He'll drag a bunt if you play back on him.
Here's the 1-2. In there, strike 3, and Sluzarski has the strikeout, his 2nd of the game. Let's now check in with Tom Mees.
All right, Steve Physioc, thanks. Budweiser takes this to Anaheim. Von Hayes, he had no home runs in 77 games for the Phillies last year. In his 4th game with the Angels, he now has 2 on the season, including this one. He also made a nice catch in right field. Let's take a look at the scores. Toronto a winner. The Yankees a winner. Minnesota wins. California leads 3-1. KC trails Seattle. Now back to Oakland, where the White Sox are in command. Steve?
I saw those Texas Rangers down 7-1. Looks like they'll go down to their first loss of the year after starting off 4-0 with the Seattle Mariners. And Lance Johnson, with 1 out, strikes a single to left field.
Pretty good hit and run situation coming up right here. 1 out, good speed at first base. Ozzie Guillen, a first pitch hitter, makes contact, doesn't wait around very long. Saw the fewest pitches per at bat of any hitter in Major League Baseball last year. So maybe a hit and run somewhere in this sequence.
Here is Ozzie Guillen, 2 for 12. Visiting with his old buddy Tony La Russa before the ball game. 257 on. And there is a swing and a miss. You know, Sluzarski has some awfully good pitches, one of the liveliest fastballs in the organization, and he'll cut it. He'll sink it. He also has a good forkball slider.
Joe, a member of the 1988 U.S. Olympic team. He's out of the University of New Orleans. Steve told you he was up and down with Tacoma last year 5 different times to the big league club and then back. Johnson Johnson was going, and first base coach Doug Manzanillo and Lance Johnson, I think they might have been complaining about a balk. I know Lance got up pointing. First base umpire Larry McCoy, though, rang him out. Hit and run was on, and Lance Johnson was moving towards second. You'll see this false step. And Lance says he got back in. McCoy says no. What do you think? Well, I think he was out. McGuire got him before his hand was on the base, but Slazarski's move. There's Lance's hand. Closer from this angle. Well, he's out no matter how you cut it.
And it's popped to left by Ozzie. Ricky Henderson takes care of it. So after Lance Johnson is picked off, Guillen pops up with the White Sox holding on to their 4-2 lead in the fourth.
This is reporting that Norman Green, owner of the Minnesota North Stars, says that the strike is over and a tentative agreement has been reached, awaiting ratification of the NHL players. If we have any further ratification news or further confirmation, we'll give it to you, and SportsCenter will cover it at 1:30 Eastern Time. Now let's go back to Steve in Oakland.
And that is indeed good news for Chicago White Sox hockey fan Kirk McCaskill. We've got a 4-2 ball game, and the White Sox have the lead. Kirk McCaskill, a 31-year-old pitcher, turned 31 last night, and he got the win over his old team, the California Angels, and really a rising hockey star. And he was concerned about that strike, that hockey strike in the NHL. Here's Carney Lansford going against Alex Fernandez in the count of no balls, 2 strikes. Last time up, Lansford doubled to left. Fastball fouled off, stays, no balls and 2 strikes.
Well, you really have to admire the courage of a Carney Lansford last year. He had his anterior and posterior knee ligaments reconstructed in January. He said, everybody said he's going to be out the entire year. He came back first part of August, batted 16 times, and finally realized that for, the sake of the ball club and for his own career, that maybe he had rushed it. So he shut it down the rest of the year, but he's moving very well based on what we've seen so far this year.
And he's a guy in the offseason got stronger. Put on 15 pounds. Fastball fouls it off, and he said, I have to get more pop in the bat. I mean, prior to last year, 5 home runs in his 2 seasons prior, and before that, he was a good 10 to 15 home run a year guy.
Yeah, the year he won didn't win the batting title, but he finished in the top 2 when he hit .336 here. He became more of an opposite field hitter. He was hitting in that 2 spot and did a great job of protecting Ricky Henderson. So once he developed that opposite field stroke, he kind of lost his power stroke, but now he's hitting deeper in the order. So he'd like to get that home run stroke back a little more, maybe hit 12 to 15, still go the other way to advance runners, when he can.
It was interesting to watch him adjust his game when the A's acquired Ricky Henderson. I mean, he would take a lot of pitches to let Henderson steal bases. Ball rests outside, 2 balls, 2 strikes, and his numbers went up dramatically when he was seeing more fastballs when Ricky got on base.
Yeah, it really takes a unique talent. A guy, the year Lou Brock stole 118 bases, I'll tell you, Ted Sizemore, batting in the number 2 spot, had an absolutely brilliant year for St. Louis. He would take foul pitches off, spoil them, but he could go deep in the count anytime he wanted to, and he just wasn't a guy that struck out very much. So, that number 2 hitter, when a guy steals 100 bases, well, the number 2 guy's got to get a lot of credit too.
Well, Lansford gets on base to lead off the 4th inning. Let's check in with Tom Mees.
All right, Steve, let's check in at San Diego. Bob Ojeda pitching for the Dodgers, trailing 3-1, delivering to Gerald Clark, who delivers and serves this one up to the fans in the front row of the left field seats. San Diego leading at 4-1. Solo homer for Clark, Steve.
And he is off to an excellent start. I mean, a lot of scouts around the major leagues have always said, Gerald Clark, what a quick bat he has.
Well, he hit 300 every year in the minor leagues, 6 consecutive years. Last year had a lot of leg problems and had a terrible second half of the year. One of the question marks the Padres are trying to answer, their left field situation, trying to find out if Darren Jackson, who hit 21 homers a year ago, is the real deal or was this an aberration last year. Of course, the big thing that still hangs over that ball club is, are they going to trade Benito Santiago or not? One day they say yes, next day the other clubs take offers off the table. I think that situation's got to be settled by the Padres, and so people can start concentrating on winning baseball games.
Well, we'll have a chance to see those San Diego Padres on ESPN next Tuesday as the Padres invade Candlestick Park for a game with the Giants. And there's a ground ball, base hit to right field. With the turn at second, Lansford will make third easily. Time runs on with nobody out.
One time in Major League Baseball, you're down 2 runs, 4th inning. Not too many managers would run, but Tony La Russa, like a lot of the modern-day managers, still stays very aggressive. Hit and run, Bordick, perfect execution. Lansford is breaking on the pitch, and Bordick hits it perfectly between Frank Thomas and Steve Sachs, and Lansford picking it up right away, wheels all the way around to third. So La Russa stays aggressive, and that's one of the things the A's have done early in the season. Very aggressive play on the bases. And La Russa says, well, yeah, a lot of it is because we're designing it that way, but you got to get men on base before you can take an aggressive approach.
Well, he can get plenty aggressive now with runners at the corners. Nobody out for Lance Blankenship, who started the year a hot .417, and a breaking ball that catches the outside corner. I had a chance to visit with Lance around the batting cage earlier today, and he said, hey, it's simply repetitions, going up there, knowing you're going to get 4 at-bats, feeling comfortable. I always knew I had offensive skills, and I'm beginning to show it.
Well, we talked about the fact was Sluzarski up and down 5 times last year. Blankenship 5 consecutive years has been up and down with the A's and down to Tacoma.
It gets away, and a run will score as checking in Connie Lansford from third base, and all the way around to third is Bordick. He is in there.
I think Frank Thomas is going to get hooked with the air here. Big Frank just took his eye off the ball. It wasn't a real great throw by Alex Fernandez, but Frank just took his eye off it. And with a lot of room in foul territory here, not only does Lansford score easily, but Bordick is able to wheel around. Let's see how bad this throw is. Maybe Frank, I don't know. Ball sailed, there's no question about that, but it still looked like he took his eye off it. You see Bordick turning around, getting a good look, and he's going to wheel all the way to third.
Tommy Reynolds, your old buddy, said the thing about Mike Bordick. He said, Tony, watch him, put him in there. The more you see him, the more you're going to like him.
Well, when Weiss comes back, Bordick will be battling Blankenship for the spot at second base.
Well, they give the error to Frank Thomas. He only made 2 all last year, and that's number 1.
Of course, most of the year he was spent in the DH role. Tough to make errors in that one.
Runner-up to Minnesota's Chili Davis, designated hitter of the year, because he had to split it between first base and DH because his numbers were absolutely brilliant. And there is a swing and a miss and a breaking ball. 1 ball, 2 strikes to Lance Blankenship.
Blankenship, the 13th regular second baseman the A's have had in the last 17 years. So it's been kind of a revolving door there. Mike Gallego probably has seen as much time as anybody else during that period. But Gallego went on to New York, signing the free agent contract with the Yankees.
Misses away. Now, Mike Gallego, a terrific second baseman, one of the top defensive second baseman in all of baseball, Dave, but were you surprised at the amount of money the Yankees gave him?
Yeah, I mean, I thought Gallego could certainly be useful to a number of clubs. He's coming off an excellent year, but it kind of surprised me that the Yankees would grab him, give him the big money, and then move him to shortstop.
There's a ground ball. That's a base hit, and we are tied at 4 as scoring from third, Mike Bordick.
See, the other thing that's happened for the A's in the early going, and you talked about Bordick and Lansford and now Blankenship, they're getting tremendous production out of the bottom of their order, and that's something they got very little out of offensively last year. So the bottom of the order is really starting to come through for the A's in the early going. Key hit for Blankenship, drives in a run. Yesterday, a squeeze bunt. Bordick's had 2 or 3 clutch hits, and Connie Lansford got aboard to start it off with the base on balls.
And Dave, you take a look at this Oakland team. They had a question mark coming into this year at every single infield position. We talked about Lansford, the injured knee, Weiss with coming off the ankle injury, loss of Gallego, and Mark McGwire hitting .201.
Jackie Brown out for his second visit. Yeah, just kind of expounding on that. Last year, the A's used 9 different guys at third base with Lansford out. With Weiss out, they used 7 different shortstops and 8 different second basemen. This is Wilson Alvarez, who pitched a no-hitter for the White Sox last year, relegated to the bullpen this year, and the scouts I've talked to say this guy is really throwing the baseball well, coming off a great year in Venezuela.
Now, Winter League, didn't he go unbeaten and had like a .25 earned run average down in the Venezuelan. And everybody we talk to says Ron Schuler's getting calls all the time about, will you deal Wilson Alvarez?
One of the Ez brothers. There's one right there, Alex Fernandez, and they got Wilson Alvarez and Roberto Hernandez, and they had another one last year, Melito Perez, but he went on for the Steve Sachs trade.
Only you would think that.
No, the White Sox, that's what they call them. They call those guys the Ez brothers.
But I'm sure you told them.
No, I didn't tell them. I just read it.
Bottom of the fourth inning, Steve Physioc, Dave Campbell at the Oakland Coliseum, a tie ball game, 4-4, and Ricky Henderson the batter with Lance Blankenship at first base. He has very good speed, stolen a base this year, and he stole 12 last season in limited appearance. Ricky 1 for 2. He has stolen 2 bases. That on the infield base hit in the first, stole second, stole third, but was left stranded.
Blankenship will run. He's got good speed. Karkovice, though, an excellent throwing catcher. Runners last year against Alex Fernandez, only 58% success rate, so he holds runners, gives his catchers a chance. Sparky Anderson had a great line on Karkovice.
Blankenship not going.
Sparky said, you know, Karkovice, he kind of just nonchalantly stays back there. He kind of invites you to run, and then when you do, then you remember why you shouldn't have.
Well, Ricky got him twice. Blankenship at first base. Nobody out. We're in the bottom of the fourth inning. A 4-4 ball game between two teams unbeaten this year. And now it's trouble. Now you talk about mistake hitters in the game. This guy is one of the very best.
Yeah, Alex could be sitting squarely on the bubble right here. If Ricky reaches, Alvarez may be coming on. Even Lamont may have seen enough of young Fernandez tonight.
The 3-0 is in there. 3 balls and 1 strike.
See if Tony La Russa starts the runner here. 3-1. Not a hit and run. If Ricky Henderson doesn't like it, if it's not a strike, it's ball 4. So it's not a hit and run situation. Ricky, if he likes to pitch, can try to drive it.
Well, they got one earlier this week. 2 days ago, he won the game in the 13th inning against the Kansas City Royals with a solo shot home run. And Ricky, despite coming into this contest 2 for 15 yesterday, I watched that ball game. He went 0 for 5, but he just blistered the ball every single time. Now 3 for 17. The 3-1. Takes it high, ball 4. We'll have runners in first and second, and still nobody out in the fourth. Well, Chris Berman says this Monday is going to be Manic Monday as the Atlanta Braves take on the Cincinnati Reds. Dave Justice and Barry Larkin. 7:30 Eastern Time on ESPN. Hotel California moves to just another Manic Monday.
Tony La Russa liking the way his club battled back. Robin Ventura just went in to talk to Alex Fernandez. I don't know if that was a little bit of a stall, but I don't think so, because Alvarez is just standing down in the bullpen. He's ready if Gene Lamont wants him.
Well, here comes Willie Wilson, and after that, it's really working for trouble as Canseco, Baines, McGuire checked in. 2 on, nobody out. 4-4 our score, and a fastball in there, strike 1. Sammy Ellis, who was the pitching coach last year for the Chicago White Sox, talking about Alex Fernandez. He said last year, at the age of 21, he was putting too much pressure on himself. And I was trying to get him to throw softer. He was almost too aggressive. Curveball to the right side. The runners move over, and Fernandez makes the play at first base. So Willie Wilson does his job as Blankenship goes to third, and to second base, Ricky Henderson.
With Ricky Henderson at second base and nobody out in the first, Willie Wilson could not do that. He could not advance him, but that time Fernandez threw him a slow curveball, and Willie was able to get around, hold it weakly on the right side, but gets the job done.
Now what do? You got Canseco coming up, first base open, tie ball game.
Now you got to go after Canseco, especially with the kind of track record Alex Fernandez has had. Canseco 1 for 14 with 9 strikeouts. Interesting thing will be if he can get Canseco, then what do? You probably walk Baines to get to the very hot Mark McGuire. Either that or you could bring in Alvarez to pitch to Baines. But right now, the key guy is Canseco.
And Jose jumping all over Alex Fernandez's first pitch, fouls it off.
Amazing thing about Canseco, with 122 RBIs last year, he left a lot of guys in scoring position with less than 2 outs. With runners at third base and less than 2 outs, he only delivered 43% of the time. He was 23 for 50. So he had 122, but he left a lot of ducks out there. Part of that because he strikes out quite a bit.
Who was the best?
Who was the best at getting him in? It was Lou Whitaker, the Detroit Tigers, 18 out of 21 times last year.
Blankenship and Henderson on. Second and third. And the count to Jose Canseco, 1 ball, 1 strike. Well, this has been a very quiet year for Jose Canseco. I mean, a lot of noise in the Oakland camp as they open spring training with the Ricky Henderson deal.
That was only the first week of the season.
Here's the 1-1. Misses, 2 balls and 1 strike. Jose rolled into spring training a couple of days late with a $234,000 red Lamborghini. And La Russa said, hey, it's low key. You can slip in and out without a lot of attention.
Right.
Here's the 2-1. And Canseco with a towering shot to left center field, but enough room for Lance Johnson. Blankenship tags, comes home, and the A's have a 5-4 lead.
Well, good textbook baseball by the A's that time. Willie Wilson gets the ball on the right side to advance the runners, and Canseco, who has really struggled against Alex Fernandez, delivers that man from third with less than 2 outs. So that's a big run. The A's grab the lead. And Gene Lamont's on his way, and that's going to be it for Alex Fernandez. That was one of those just missed for Canseco. He got the arms extended. You see Lance Blankenship tagging. There'll be no play on him, and Ricky Henderson alertly goes to third base.
Pitching change on. The A's back in front, 5-4.
And by ESPN Home Video, producers and distributors of Legends of Baseball, available at video and retail stores nationwide.
Steve Physioc, Dave Campbell at the Oakland Alameda County Coliseum, and Wilson Alvarez, the pitcher, 6'1", 175 pounds, and he faces a man who he was once traded for when Alvarez was with the Texas Rangers organization. He was sent to Chicago for this man, Harold Baines. Harold 0 for 2.
Last year, the high point of the Chicago White Sox season, Wilson Alvarez on August 11th threw a no-hitter against Baltimore, just his second major league start. That was the high water mark for the White Sox. They were in clover, and then all of a sudden they lost 15 out of their next 17 games, and that's really what cost them any shot at the division title.
Yeah, they were 65 and 45 and 1 game back of the Twins, and they wound up 8 back.
An immediate 9-game losing streak, 15 out of 17, and that was it for the White Sox. They could never recover.
Anderson is at third, and Baines with a swing and a miss as the bottom dropped out of that pitch, and it's 2 balls and 2 strikes with 2 outs. Alex Fernandez, his day is finished, but Henderson is still his man at third base. 22 years old, and the veteran Ricky Henderson walked to cause more problems. Outside corner at the knees, and down goes Harold Baines. So Alvarez comes on to strike out the veteran Baines, but the A's reclaim the lead, 5-4. 3 in their half of the 4th inning now at the lead on the Chicago White Sox. We've got Sunday Night Baseball's premiere coming your way. This Sunday, John Miller, Joe Morgan, Texas Rangers, and the Minnesota Twins Kirby Puckett. That's 8 o'clock Eastern time, right here on ESPN. The Rangers against the world champion Twins.
And the world champions derailed the Texas Rangers tonight 7-1 as Texas, who scored 38 runs in their first 4 games at Seattle, only managed 1 tonight against the Twins. Looked like Kevin Tapani was the manager of Minnesota.
You know, we made our picks, and you know, I have my Street and Smith pick, I call it, where I open up Street and Smith and pick to a team, and I have to choose them. And that was the Texas Rangers this year. But I thought, hey, with their offense, if they get any kind of pitching, The Rangers are going to be a tough team for Chicago and Oakland to contend with, and the rest of the guys like the Minnesota Twins. Great American League West race this year, and they got great pitching their first 4 games.
I picked the Indians.
Did you?
Yeah. I picked the Indians to do better than they did last year, and I think they will. Quite a bit better, as a matter of fact.
Well, Timmy Raines pops it up. Down the line, right field, and Blankenship is being called off by Jose Canseco, and there's 1 gone in the 5th inning. Joe Sluzarski trying to settle down. He's thrown 72 pitches in this game. And we are only starting the 5th inning.
You better wipe it off, Joe, or they'll run a ball on you. Jeff Parrott, who got the win in that 13-inning game the other night, picked up in the offseason as a free agent, signed to a contract, is loosening in the A's bullpen. I mentioned about Sluzarski. He went to his mouth. It's okay sometimes on cool evenings. The umpires will let you do that, but you have to wipe it off on your pants, and I didn't see Sluzarski do that.
So he got the man to pop it up.
Spitter, spitter.
Gaylord Perry used to go to every single part of his body right before warming up, and then probably have too much of the rosin bag in his hand anyway. Here's the 1-0 to Steve Sachs. He goes the opposite field. Canseco has it measured, and there's 2 gone.
Now, the first time the A's gave Sluzarski a lead, he coughed it right back up by allowing 4 in the 3rd. This time, the A's have presented him with a 1-run lead. He's gotten a couple of harmless flies to the outfield. Let's see if he can close it out here by getting Ventura.
And Joe might have his first 1-2-3 innings since the 2nd when he got Thomas Bell and Pasqua. Here's Robin. Singled his last time, but did not hit the ball well. He gets most of it this time, but not enough. And Ricky Henderson gives Joe Sluzarski an easy 1-2-3. 5-4. Oakland has the lead. Now let's go to Tom Mees to check out what might be the end of an NHL strike.
Well, Steve, it is the end of an NHL strike, and a joint news conference still going on at this hour. NHL President John Ziegler is on the dais along with Bob Goodnow, the executive director of the National Hockey League Players Association. They've agreed on a 1-year deal, so there won't be any strike at least for 1 more year. Goodnow is giving some details tonight of the new deal with the owners.
What we did with the term is I think that the players hit the nail on the head. It is a short agreement. And we feel that works in the long run to the betterment for both sides. We were able to resolve the big issue with the licensing and endorsements, that type of thing. And that was, I think, mostly responsible to the good work done by some lawyers, Ted for us, and a couple of the people that the league had there. And they worked that through to everybody's satisfaction. As far as the rest of the agreement is concerned, I think all the issues were dealt with to the satisfaction of both sides, and that there are some loose ends, but really with the effort that's going to take place here in the next year, the structure is in place to resolve them. I know there'll be some loose details that need to be taken care of, but Jim Gregory for the league and Sam Simpson on our behalf will be working in those areas to reach the common ground that's necessary. And the final analysis is that the games begin and both sides are satisfied that the necessary principles have been reached here tonight.
Players will report to their respective teams tomorrow or later today, Eastern Time. The games will begin again, finishing out the regular season starting on Sunday. The Stanley Cup playoffs will begin in about 1 week. So there will be a Stanley Cup champion here in the spring of '92. Steve, Physioc, Dave Campbell, take it away in Oakland.
And I know one of the great hockey fans of our time, Tom Mees, will be right there covering all the action to bring it to us. Here in Oakland, it's 5-4. The A's have the lead in the Chicago White Sox. You can get more details on that NHL strike. It is history over. They'll have a Stanley Cup on SportsCenter later tonight here on ESPN. Mark McGwire, who homered early in this game, also walked his last time up, has been on base both times, and he will lead things off here in the 5th.
Going for the Jack McDowell look-alike contest with that same kind of goatee, and Mark McGwire changed physical appearance this year. Put your face up, Mark, so we can see it. Yeah, you look a little meaner this year, Mark.
And I told him about that during preseason. Tom Browning never shaves before a starting performance with the Cincinnati Reds because he wants to look meaner, make that fastball look a little tougher when it comes in.
I always thought
McGuire said, I like that.
Yeah, I always liked the Goose Gossage mustache. I think he's still got it, but it was more effective when he was throwing 98 and 99 from the side.
1-1, and McGuire pops it up right side. Frank Thomas takes care of it, and one gone in the bottom of the fifth.
Notice Mark McGuire, 1992. He is much more of a crouch. 1991, more upright, lifts the leg higher. Still a great, devastating low ball hitter, but he's more spread out in 92, using his hands quicker. The hands are the key for McGuire, but he's bent over a little more at the waist, a little wider base. And those are some of the things that's helped McGuire, at least to this point, get off to a blazing start.
Dave, did he have a longer swing last year?
Well, you know, of course, the one we looked at, the 1991 shot was a home run. So anytime you hit a home run, you usually have a pretty quick swing. But yeah, I thought he was sweeping an awful lot last year. I think the one thing that Doug Rader has talked to him about, and again, this is just by eyesight, because Doug and Mark aren't talking to anybody about this, but it looks like Doug has really told him to concentrate on just throwing his hands at the ball. Sometimes the big guys have a little tendency to try to muscle up on it and forget about, you know, the strength in their hands. There's the Rooster. He coached with Tony La Russa when Tony was managing the White Sox back in the mid-'80s. He was the third base coach, and he's back with Tony now. The Digger.
Mike Moore, who pitched the other day, is Tony La Russa's #2 starter. Dave Stewart went on opening day and pitched well after a terrible performance in 1991 where he won 11 games but had an ERA of 5.18. It's a 5-4 ball game here. Oakland has the lead in the Chicago White Sox, and Jamie Quirk, the batter, he homered to right field his first time up, grounded out his last, and he has to count 3-1 to Wilson Alvarez. And here's the pitch by Alvarez, and it's in there, 3-2. Alvarez, we told you about his brilliant winter Zulia in Venezuela, went 8-0, a 1.47 earned run average, and had every scout down in the Latin American territory talking about this young left-hander. To left field, tough play Ventura, but the Gold Glove winner from a year ago is there to make the catch.
Looked like Robin might have turned the wrong way, but it turned out to be the correct way. He got back, made a fine play in foul territory. So Robin Ventura with a nice play to help out Alvarez. Kind of a la Willie Mays over the shoulder. Maybe not quite the same dramatic effect. See Robin kind of looking over his right shoulder, but it was clearly in foul territory. But a nice catch by Ventura.
Boy, you talk about young, terrific corners. You might have to start with the Chicago White Sox, Frank Thomas and Robin Ventura. There's some older fellows across the bay, Will Clark and Matt Williams, who do a pretty fine job. But as far as being in the league a short amount of time, well, there's Frank over at first base, and he gave you 109 RBIs last year, and Ventura gave you 100. Fastball high.
They obviously listened to the advice of Reggie Jackson. Jack, who's doing the Oakland A's broadcast, said, hey, when you stand on the corners, you got to lean on the pole. And they did last year. 209 RBIs between them.
Fouled off, 2 balls and 2 strikes. I mean, you can get away with just having gloves on the keystone, but those corners better be able to get a little stronger. That's just what Carney Lansford did. He says, I've got to get more pop in my bat. I've got a guy behind me, Scott Brocious, who is giving me a run for my money. Checks his swing, went around. That's strike 3. And Fernandez with a 1-2-3 inning. He has faced 4. He set them all down. 5-4. A's still lead. See him where the A's have the 5-4 lead in the Chicago White Sox. I'm Steve Physioc. This is Dave Campbell. And Dave, might we be seeing the changing of the guard with the A's, a veteran great outfit who dominated baseball late 80s and the 90s, and the Chicago White Sox young and potentially excellent?
Well, it could be. I mean, the White Sox have a great young baseball team, but I think for the Oakland A's, the key is if they can stay competitive up to the All-Star break, then I think the A's won't make any changes. If they don't, then I think you see Sandy Alderson start to retool this baseball team. We are in the top half of the 6th inning. No balls and a strike. Hitter is Frank Thomas against Joe Sluzarski.
Big Frank hit by a Joe Slazarski fastball in his last at bat. And that was the inning where Slazarski really struggled. Faced 9, gave up 4 runs. He still has a 5-4 advantage as we start the 6th inning of play in Oakland, California. Joe Slazarski last year with 5 wins, 7 losses, and 4-2 at Tacoma. And they feel he should be part of the rotation for years. Bounces it in the dirt. Right now, this Oakland rotation is Dave Stewart, Mike Moore, Ron Darling, Slazarski, and John Briscoe, because Bob Welch still out with shoulder, back, leg problems.
Yeah, I talked to Dave Duncan about Welch tonight. He said actually Bobby's really starting to feel good right now. They're going to leave him behind on his road trip, send him over to Arizona. He said he'd probably pitch a simulated game or 2 as opposed to joining their AAA club. But Welch could be ready within a week or 2. There's Bobby. 27 wins in the Cy Young in 1990, but fell off to 12 and 13 a year ago as he and Dave Stewart both suffered through a tough year.
Yeah, they went from 49 wins to 23.
Yeah.
Frank Thomas has the count, 2 balls, 2 strikes. Very selective hitter. Led the American League in walks last year with 138. Way outside, 3 balls and 2 strikes. And I visited with Gene Lamont about that, the new skipper with production now from George Bell. And he said, you know, I still think he may lead the league in walks just because of the way he has taught himself to be patient at the plate.
Well, they were concerned in the early spring, though, because Thomas was lunging after a few bad pitches because he felt he had to be the main man. I think you'll see him right back in the same groove he was a year ago.
Well, he walks here.
Walt Riniak says he has not seen a young player other than Thomas have such a great concept for the strike zone. A lot of veteran observers say you have to go all the way back to Ted Williams to see a young player with that kind of strike zone definition.
And that's exactly what Walt was saying when the critics say, hey, he is too selective, he's got to be more aggressive. He says, hey, so is Ted Williams.
Hey, they said that about Williams for years. Hey, Ted, you got to swing the bat to help the club. Ted said, if I do that, I'll hurt the club, because he says, I've tooled my swing to hit strikes.
And they finally went out. The Red Sox got Vern Stevens to hit 30-plus home runs from that shortstop position. Here comes Tony La Russa to visit with Joe Slazarski, who has walked the leadoff man Frank Thomas to start the 6th inning, and that's the first base on balls allowed by Slazarski all year. Not just regular season, but spring baseball as well. We'll see the right-hander Jeff Parrott as Slazarski will lead with a 5-4 lead.
Shower yourself with a new sensation.
Chicago White Sox and the new pitcher Jeff Parrott.
Parrott, 30 years old, 5th major league season, been around. Started his career with Montreal as a Rule 5 draft. Last year split his time between Atlanta and Richmond. Book on Parrott, good fastball, pretty good slider, and throws to first base a lot. We'll see if he throws over with Frank Thomas, who's not much of a base stealing threat, but for Jeff, doesn't seem to matter who's over there. The Babe could be there, and he'd be throwing to first base.
John Goodman could be there and be thrown over to first base. Well, George Bell will start it for Jeff Parrott, and he goes after the first pitch and drives it to center field. Willie Wilson comes on to make the play, and Thomas, a long way from first, has a chance to get doubled off, but it will not be in time as Frank gets back and makes it a close play.
I don't know if Frank didn't get a good read on that or not. He watched it off the bat, and then all of a sudden he kind of decided he thought the ball was going to fall in, but Wilson caught up with it rather easily. And let's see if Willie picked it up right away. Now he takes about 4 or 5 steps before he fires on to first, and that second bounce is what got him. If it would have gotten there on 1 bounce, Thomas would have been dead. Good hustle by the home plate umpire Jim Evans. It was his call at first base, and he hustled down there. One of those things you don't see a lot. Each umpire has a responsibility, and in that particular play, the first base umpire had to go out and make the call in the outfield and make sure that Willie Wilson had caught it, so Evans had to cover the play at first.
Parrott blows that fastball right by Danny Pasqua, and that's strike 1. Pasqua tonight 0 for 2, struck out his first time, grounded out to Mark McGuire, who made an excellent play in the 3rd. Ground ball foul. He's in the hole. No balls and 2 strikes.
Checking out the umpires for tonight's game, a veteran American League crew. Jim Evans out of Austin, Texas. Larry McCoy, Ted Hendry, and Gary Cedarstone. Well, if there was ever a guy trading to be an umpire, it has to be the crew chief, Jim Evans. He was a political science and speech major in college and was on the debate team at the University of Texas.
And there's a swing and a miss for Dan Pasqua, and Jeff Barrett has his first strikeout of this game.
Pasqua just can't catch up. So Jeff Parrott has come in and gotten the first 2 men out he's faced. A's bullpen got to be better this year if they're going to compete. They went from a 2.35 ERA last year, or the year before, to 4.78 as Joe Slizarski looks on. Can be the winner, can't be the loser. Parrott gets out of here, he could stand to win it if the A's hold on.
Now here's Ron Karkovice, who took Slizarski deep his first time. Hit his first home run of the year. Man at first base belongs to Slizarski. Joe had the count 3-2 to Ron and fed him a fastball, and he said, "See you later." Tough foul. A ball, a strike. Work with no play. You know, I never could understand what happened to Jeff Parrott. Back in '88, he goes 12-4 with a .265 earned run average for the Montreal Expos, and then in '89 goes 12-6. I talked to Dave Duncan. Did he have any injuries? He said no. He just really doubted himself, and it was a confidence thing. There's a look at Rick Honeycutt. He's warming in the Oakland bullpen. Even Jeff said himself, there has never been a question of my ability. He stuck his tongue in his cheek and said the hitters just weren't cooperating.
It'd be kind of interesting to see if the A's go to Dennis Eckersley tonight. Eck has pitched in all 3 games so far, but he only worked a third of an inning in last night's game to pick up a save. So we'll have to see if Eck gets up later on. If he does, it won't be for more than a batter or 2 at the most.
Saw Gene Nelson down in that bullpen, trying to come back from a terrible 1991 season. Number 19, great changeup, played for the Chicago White Sox with Tony La Russa. Karkovice has worked the count, 3 balls, 1 strike. Runner was going, they've got a man, and Thomas safe at second base.
Frank running on the 3-1 count. Jeff Parrott, whose history is throwing to first base a lot, did not throw over. May have cost him. Frank gets a pretty good jump. Parrott kind of slow to the plate with the delivery. Big Frank, you see, running the bases properly, looks over his shoulder to see if the ball is hit. Some guys do, some guys don't. Lonnie Smith didn't. Saw Steve Sachs earlier in the ball game. He did not look over his shoulder when he was running to second. Didn't have any idea where the ball was.
A's with a 5-4 lead. We're in the 6th inning. The count full to Ron Karkovice. And he takes high the fastball, and the runner's now on first and second with 2 outs, and the batter will be Lance Johnson.
And back comes La Russa. Probably going to see the left-hander, Rick Honeycutt. Tony not coming out for a social chat, I don't believe.
So Jeff Parrott comes in, gets George Bell in the fly ball, strikes out Pasqua, but walks Karkovice in a 3-2 count. Rick Honeycutt back on as we remain in the top of the 6th.
Have you had your V8 today?
Oakland with a 1-run lead in the Chicago White Sox, but Chicago with runners in first and second, 2 out, and the new pitcher, the left-hander Rick Honeycutt.
Rick, 37 years old, 15th Major League season. See his numbers from last year. He missed the first 2.5 months with the torn labrum that was repaired surgically. I think the labrum, if I'm not mistaken, is shoulder cartilage, just a little fancier name for it.
I'm just glad you told me it was the shoulder. I was getting worried about him. There's a breaking ball, and there's just missing high. 1 ball, no strike.
Now, Tony plays percentages left-right, but in this case, Lance Johnson, look at his career numbers. They aren't too much difference, lefty and righty.
Lance Johnson has been on base twice, reached in the air and scored. Last time with a base hit, and he nails one right back to Honeycutt, who takes care of it to get out of the inning. We head to the bottom of the 6th inning here in Oakland. The A's holding on to that 1-run lead.
In Anaheim tonight, the Angels trying to win their first game of the year, but the Brewers aren't making it easy. This is Greg Vaughn, and this is what a home run looks like at the crack of the bat. Gone. It is 4-3, and the Brewers have the bases loaded in the 6th. Eichhorn has come on out of the Angel bullpen to try and hold the fort. Let's get back to Oakland.
A's saw all they wanted of Greg Vaughn last year. 6 home runs, 20 RBIs against Oakland, so he's picking on somebody else tonight.
And it's in California, Anaheim. Here in Oakland, the A's with a 5-4 lead, and Wilson Alvarez, who has seen 4 Oakland A's, and he set them all down, starts off Mike Bordick with strike 1. Bordick has been very, very strong in replacing the injured Walt Weiss, who they feel will be back April 12th, when his time in the 15-day disabled list is finished, complete, after that rib injury. And he will either move Bordick over to second base, but you just wonder the way Blankenship is playing, if Blankenship will just take it for himself. Here's the 1-1. Breaking ball just misses the outside corner. It's 2 balls and 1 strike.
Steve, the A's have had the luxury the last few years, although maybe they didn't know they had it, but having capable replacements. Walt Weiss has missed 207 games the last 3 years, 2 knee injuries and an ankle injury, but Gallego and now Bordick have done a good job.
Ventura keeps it in front of him and throws out Mike Bordick. There's 1 gone. Tony La Russa, I was talking with him earlier tonight about the team he has this year. They've won with these guys, and he feels they can win it again.
Well, we felt like this club could still compete. And it really wasn't anything, you know, there's a label now about last hurrah with this team, which is so full of baloney. You know, we just tried to put the best combination we could. A lot of the guys that have been here, we wanted to hold them over. We think they can still play. We added a couple of guys like Gossage and Parrott in our bullpen that we're real happy with. So it was more trying to make the best of what we have, and we like most of the guys that have been here.
And Tony La Russa really feeling like the clubhouse is more together this year. There was a lot of speculation coming out of camp last year what to do with Ricky Henderson, and Tony even said, hey, I don't think I handled Ricky well myself. And then you had the injury, so it really was staring in the face of doom after a team that had been so strong from '88 on.
Well, Ricky came in with a little chip on his shoulder this spring, but Tony had about a 35-minute meeting with him. And what went on in that meeting, I don't know, but Ricky Henderson has been kind of a model of decorum. The other night, he hit a game-winning home run in the 13th inning, and the reporter said he was very subdued. He says, hey, I'm just happy to help contribute. I think Ricky realizes that, hey, the A's are not going to renegotiate this deal. And if I want a chance to continue playing Major League Baseball at big money, I got to go out and start putting the numbers up and quit complaining. Ricky says he has 1 major goal left besides, of course, the Hall of Fame, which I think he's a virtual lock, and that's to try and catch the record of runs scored by Ty Cobb. But, I mean, Ricky would have to play 8 more years, and I don't know, with the kind of hamstring problems he has, I think that'd be pretty tough. He's about 800 runs behind Cobb. I don't know if that goal is within reach.
But he is on deck. Alvarez with the 1-2. It is on the outside corner, strike 3. Let's check in with Tom Mezigan. What's going on?
I'll tell you what's going on. You want to see a long tater? I mean, a Major League home run? This is Ken Griffey Jr. This thing is probably still rattling around the empty seats in the Kingdom. He almost hit the exit gate on the fly. Part of a 4-run uprising in the 7th. Seattle leading it big over KC. Steve?
I'm waiting for that young man in that cornfield somewhere in Kansas to bring it down, like in the movie The Natural. And that young man is Ken Griffey Jr. Well, here's Ricky Henderson.
Steve, you knew the M's were going to take it out on somebody after that thrashing 4-game series by the Texas Rangers. The Kansas City Royals off to their worst start in their 24-year history, apparently ready to go 0-4.
I had a chance to watch them yesterday, and they look like a club that might struggle for a little while. Kansas City trying to find a rotation after losing Brett Saberhagen in that trade with the New York Mets. And this West is going to be really terrific. I mean, you got 2 teams coming into Oakland Coliseum tonight unbeaten, 3-0, the White Sox and the A's. You got the Texas Rangers, who started the night at 4-0, but they have gone down to defeat. And, of course, the world champion Minnesota Twins in this division. In there. Ricky thought it was ball 4.
Ricky Henderson will work a pitcher over. Wilson Alvarez knows that. Let's see what Alvarez fed him here. Fastball. Ricky thought it was in. Jim Evans said got the inside edge.
The 3-1. He wishes a fastball to left field. A 2-out base hit for Ricky Henderson.
This could present an interesting scenario. You have the world's greatest base stealer as far as numbers, 997 in the career, and Wilson Alvarez last year, while he was on the mound, did not allow one stolen base. He's very quick to the plate. This is a running situation. 2 outs, Ricky Henderson at first. He got the combination of a pitcher with a good move and a quick delivery to the plate and a great throwing catcher. Let's see if Ricky jumps up to the challenge.
3 away from 1,000. We have 3 of the top base stealers of all time here tonight. 2 on the A's, and Henderson and Wilson, and Raines of the White Sox. And Ricky visiting with Frank Thomas, the big first baseman. There's a ground ball right back at Alvarez. Takes down Wilson, and we will have no challenge to see if Henderson can steal on Alvarez. Ricky, though, and his Oakland A's have a 5-4 lead on the Chicago White Sox. We've got Guillen, Raines, Sachs coming your way in the 7th.
ESPN's presentation of Major League Baseball is brought to you by State Farm Insurance. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Steve Physioc and Dave Campbell, with a crowd of 30,000 plus on hand watching the Oakland A's lead the Chicago White Sox 5-4. A's trying to make it 4 straight. They've only done that once in their history, and that came back in 1981. They started a campaign 4-0. Last time they went 3-0, they won the World Championship over the San Francisco Giants. That was back in 1989. And here is Ozzie Guillen. Bunt single. And back in the 3rd. Honeycutt really moves him off the plate.
Rick Honeycutt pounds Ozzie inside. Ozzie, another guy, leans across the plate, so Honeycutt comes up and in, says, Oz, get off the dish. Ozzie's helmet looks a little mangled for this early in the season. It's supposed to be bright and shiny in the first week of the year.
That's from taking on those linebackers in the Red Dog situation. We are at beautiful Oakland Alameda County Coliseum. Temperatures in the 50s, and the Oakland A's have a 5-4 lead in the Chicago White Sox. It was 4-2 White Sox, and then the A's came up with 3 for the lead. And Hort going back to take care of Guillen to start this 7th.
Notice how Honeycutt got him off the plate with the first pitch, and looked like Ozzie was reaching a little bit with his back end out. So come inside, keep those hitters honest. They don't dive across the plate quite as much. Watch Ozzie's backside. Looks like a, ooh, let's see, my sporting blood just turned to moose milk. Ooh, get that backside out and kind of reach. Wonder why pitchers pitch in. That's a pretty good example right there.
Well, here comes Tim Raines. He was 1 for 3, knocked in a run in the 3rd, stole a base, came around to score. And that was part of the 4-run 3rd inning where Chicago had a brief 4-2 lead, but Oakland came back with 3 in their half of the 4th. And that's where we are right now, 5-4 A's.
Like Bob Gibson once said, he says the plate is 17 inches wide. The hitters have the middle 13 inches. He said, I got the 2 in and 2 away, and a lot of times I'll pitch in to make sure I keep that 2 inches on the outside part. And that's exactly what Honeycutt did to Ozzie Guillen right there.
Not anymore. You come inside, they say, hey, you're messing with my livelihood. Goose Gossage warming in the A's bullpen. Don Paul down in the White Sox. And the pitch by Rick Honeycutt. Ground ball foul.
Well, Don Drysdale's rule, he always had the 2-for-1 rule. You knock down one of my hitters once, I'm going to knock down 2 of yours.
And you know, you visit with him when we go down to Dodger Stadium. It's a delight. You talk about pitching inside, smoke starts coming out of his ears.
Yeah, you can. I mean, you can get guys like Gibby and Drysdale. All you got to do is just look at them wrong. They'll start, you know, God, I can't believe the way these guys pitch anymore.
Nobody on, 1 out. The 1-2 to Tim Raines, and he jumps on a fastball, drives it to left. Ricky's there. Oh, he struggles, but comes on to make the play. Coming up next Tuesday, Jerry Royce and I will be in Candlestick Park as the San Francisco Giants. It's their home opener at Candlestick Park, and a sellout crowd on hand. You can be there too. ESPN's Tuesday Night Baseball. Dave will be on his way to Kansas City.
Kansas City for the Wednesday game with the Oakland A's and the Kansas City Royals. The Royals look for a little revenge after they lose 3 in a row here to start the season.
Well, here's Steve Sachs with 2 gone. Breaking ball in there. And it looks like Rick Honeycutt is getting back to his season of 1990 where the ball is really moving well.
I think just about without exception, anybody who has a shoulder operation, it usually takes them pretty much a full year to come back. You talk to any baseball people, and they'll pretty much tell you that. Honeycutt had the surgery in late May last year, so it's been just a little bit over a year. It's going to be interesting to see how Dwight Gooden does with the New York Mets. Gooden pitched tonight, lost the home opener for the Mets 4-0 to Ken Hill in the Montreal Expos, but be interesting to see what kind of arm strength he has, how he can sustain it over the course of a year.
Oral Hershiser, after a year off and having a productive 1991, but not according to Oral Hershiser's plan, looked very sharp against the San Francisco Giants in his first performance. Game 2 this year where he beat San Francisco. Honeycutt with the 1-2. A's, we talked about their injuries last year, and they have started off this campaign with a number, but not nearly as severe as a year ago.
Well, Steve, anytime you have 12 players on your roster that are 33 years of age and older, despite what Tony La Russa may want to think, they're more vulnerable to injuries. Some of those guys are young, Dressendorfer and Klink, but the other guys in that 30-plus category, and injuries are going to happen. You see Dave Henderson.
Fly ball to right field, and Honeycutt just mows him down 1, 2, 3 on 3 fly ball outs. The Chicago White Sox had the 4-2 lead, but the A's came up with 3 in their half of the 4th, and that's all we've had. Oakland 5-4. New pitcher for Chicago, that's Don Paul.
6'1", 180, a native Chicago, gets a chance to pitch for the hometown team. Good year last year. 14 holds as well. Better numbers against left-handed batters actually than right-handed. Left-handers only hit 189.
Grew up a White Sox fan. Went to the University of Illinois. 23rd round draft pick in 1985. And the first man he will face, Jose Canseco. He knocked in the run that broke the 4-4 tie in a sacrifice fly to center field that scored Lance Blankenship from third. Jose came into the night at 167. The average was dipped to 143. And there is a beautiful breaking ball by Don Paul. He has Canseco in the hole 0-2.
Donnie Paul's got 2 different pitches that go down. One is a hard splitter. The other one is the much slower fork ball. Basically throws it with the finger split, but one he throws hard. That was the slow fork ball. Bottom fell out of that one. Canseco really screwed himself into the ground trying to swing at that one.
In the hole, here's the 0-2 pitch, and a waste pitch away. 1 ball, 2 strikes. You know, that trade of Ken Patterson, did that hurt their middle relief much, the White Sox?
I don't know. The White Sox had the best mid-relief in all of baseball last year, and the best overall relief. Kenny Patterson had a tough debut in the National League Wednesday night, giving up 3 home runs in an inning. But they feel with Wilson Alvarez moving to the bullpen, I don't think they really feel like they've lost anything at all. They have lost Melito Perez, who did a good job for them last year. Radinsky and Thigpen figure to share the closing role this year. I don't think it's always going to automatically be Thigpen in that role like it has been in the past.
Well, Jeff Torborg used to say, hey, that was my job, just to get the game to the 8th, 9th inning with a lead and bring on Bobby.
Well, it worked in 1990 to the tune of 57 saves, an all-time record. Last year he had some problems.
Canseco drops one in front of Tim Raines, and a base hit for Jose to start the bottom of the 7th. Tom, what do you have?
Well, we got the Brewers coming back in Anaheim, Steve. We got the bases loaded. California by 1. Paul Molitor lofting a ball to center field. Junior Felix the catch and the throw. And Franklin Stubbs beats it because Lance Parrish couldn't hang on. And the Brewers are threatening now in the top of the 7th. We'll keep you updated. Back to Oakland.
Here it's 5-4, Oakland with the lead. They have insurance on at first base with Jose Canseco starting his bottom of the 7th inning with a base hit to left field. And here's Harold Baines. He's 0 for 3. A chopper back to Paul. They got a chance for 2. But Guillen taking the throw way off second base can only get Harold Baines as Canseco safe at second.
I think in Ozzy's mind, he just felt that he didn't have a shot at Canseco. We'll get another look as the A's once again put a man in motion. Tony La Russa, very daring. Let's see if Donnie Paul's throw would have gotten Canseco. I think it would have if Oz had stayed on. But Ozzy bailed out and got the sure out at first base. That's a judgment call. If you hang on the base with Canseco coming in, if Jose is safe, he's probably going to dump you in the process, and you aren't going to get the out. I think Ozzy thought that he couldn't get Canseco, but the replay, of course, hindsight being the perfect science, shows it probably would have.
Well, here's Mark McGwire. With Canseco now at second base. But if Ozzy stretches himself like a first baseman towards the pitcher's mound, he's really away from Canseco.
Like I said, hindsight's perfect. You got to make that split-second decision. And Ozzy thought maybe Donnie Paul took one extra step. He thought he might lose the both plays, so he made the decision to get the sure out. Of course, that decision can be influenced by a guy 6'4", 240 when you're kind of a little bitty guy.
Yes, Mr. Canseco. Now he goes to work. Now this is, I think it was Robert Ventura, what he said. He's Sally Jesse and Geraldo wrapped into one. He never stops talking.
You know, I walked in the clubhouse today and I looked at him and he says, "What?" I said, "I haven't heard you talk for 30 seconds. Are you sick?" He says, "Yeah, I don't feel too good today." I figured something was wrong. He is the human chatterbox.
Here's the 2-1. Swing and a miss, 2 balls and 2 strikes. And Scott Fletcher, their past second baseman who worked with Ian over the years, said the best part was when they'd have a man in second base and he'd try and tell him the wrong number of outs.
Well, he's pulled a couple of hidden ball tricks in his day. As again, has worked with 16 different second basemen since he has come to Chicago. He's probably driven them all batty. That's why they ran off.
Steve Sachs trying to sneak in behind Jose Canseco to hold him close, and he's blocking the move as the pitch wanders outside. 3 balls and 2 strikes.
Yeah, if you're ever going to steal third base, and we've talked about it often, you want to do it with 1 out and a right-handed batter up. Steve Sachs is trying to keep Canseco close. Jose really thought about going. Sometimes you hate to run, though, with 2 strikes in the batter because it is a little disconcerting to a hitter when that man takes off.
Yeah, he moves off the mound. Sachs moving behind Jose, but he had read it nicely.
Kind of an ugly move by Donnie Paul. Of course, second base. The only base you have to throw to if you step towards is first base.
1 out, and now the better move, and Canseco back in town. 5-4, A's have the lead. They've led since the 4th. We're in the 7th inning.
Nope.
And McGwire fouls it off. Stays at 3-2.
Well, the last 5 years, Mr. McGwire hadn't had to take a back seat to anybody. He's the major league leader. You go back 6 years, you put number 3 up there. Jose Canseco is the leader. But the Bash brothers and Darryl Strawberry have been the big guys the last 5 years.
Here's the 3-2. And McGwire pops it up right side. Frank Thomas should have it. And he does. Canseco will stay at second base. Sunday Night Baseball coming your way on ESPN. The premier, the Texas Rangers and Ruben Sierra go against Kirby Puckett and the world champion Minnesota Twins. That's 8 o'clock Eastern time here on ESPN.
I think McGwire felt he had a pitch to handle right there. Mark kind of tossed the bat away in frustration. Donnie Paul got a breaking pitch right up in his wheelhouse, but he popped it up.
Jamie Quirk been on base twice. Excuse me, just 1 time with that solo home run. And a snap toss to second base, and they will not get Jose Canseco, who smiles and says, "Timeout, please."
So get away from me, you gnat. Quit trying to pick me off. See if Ozzie looked like he was trying to block Jose off the bag. He gets the knee down, but Jose gets the hand back in. He put that knee out in front of the base. Canseco's hand might have not gotten there.
And there's a breaking ball that dropped into left field. Canseco with the turn. Range, no play, and Jose scores. It's 6-4 Oakland.
Big run for the Oakland A's here in the bottom of the 7th. Gives them a little bit of a working margin. So Canseco getting aboard. Getting down to second base, so maybe that play by Guillen cost him a run. Little flare by Jamie Quirk, but it'll look like a liner in the box score.
Well, he has really helped out with the absence of Terry Steinbach.
You know, once again, the hidden thing in here is the aggressive nature of Tony La Russa starting this season. If he doesn't start Canseco on that pitch to Harold Baines, it's an easy 1-6-3 double play. But again, the A's have been very aggressive. They started putting men in motion when they were behind 4-2. Ricky was running right out of the chute, stealing second and third in the first inning. And the A's did lead the American League in stolen bases last year, so it's not as though, you know, they're not a running club to begin with. But the other thing Tony is doing is he's starting some guys that he has not started in the past. Guys like Bordick, who's not especially a fast runner. Carney Lansford, at one time a big stolen base threat, but after the knee surgery, probably not quite as quick.
Did he go around? Yes, he did. 1 ball, 2 strikes. Ozzie Guillen came off the bag when it looked like they would have that 1-6-3 double play, but again, Mr. Canseco at 240 pounds coming barreling down. Lansford to right field. This will end the inning, but the A's come up with 1 more in their half of the 7th and now lead the White Sox by 2. It's time for Yarns of the Yard. 25 years ago, A's out of Kansas City and headed to the West Coast. The talented young A's with a mule as a mascot and a Maverick for an owner. Won 3 straight world championships from 1972 to 74. Charlie Finley and the A's, another baseball memory from Yarns of the Yard. And there's Reggie Jackson along with broadcast partner Greg Papa, and Reggie part of that 68 ball club when they put out Bert Campaneris and Reggie Jackson. He hit the first home run for the Oakland A's on this night 25 years ago. This is their anniversary. 25th anniversary of the Oakland Alameda County Coliseum and the A's.
Reggie went on to hit 562 more for a grand total of, let's see, 562 and 1. Rick Honeycutt on to face Robin Ventura. Don't be too surprised, though, if Tony La Russa, regardless of the outcome of Ventura's at bat, brings on Goose Gossage to face the right-handers. So Honeycutt's job is to get the lefty out and go grab a shower.
And there's a ground ball hit hard, but right at Lance Blankenship. And there is one gone. Tom Mees, what else do you have around Major League Baseball?
Steve, I have the bases loaded for Fred McGriff. He's facing John Candelaria, and this time the Candyman can't. There she goes, sailing out of sight. Grand slam, home run. 4 homers in 5 games for the crime dog, the Padres, stomping the Dodgers. Steve?
Well, I'll tell you, John Candelaria turned Fred McGriff inside out last year. He certainly got a measure of revenge there. And as advertised, that'll be it for Rick Honeycutt.
We're in the top of the 8th inning, and Goose Gossage will come on to face the right-hander Frank Thomas. Frank can't do the kind of damage he would like to. Even if he goes deep, he just pulls Chicago to within 1. But Rick Honeycutt, marvelous performance tonight, as he comes on to face 5 and pushes them all aside. And there is big Frank Thomas with a home run this year, but he has been quiet tonight as they've worked around him. They hit him with a pitch, they've walked him. The only time they got him out, got him on a ground out.
Well, the Goose at age 40. see his numbers with the Texas Rangers. Couple of stints on the DL with some shoulder problems last year. Goose, one of the great relief pitchers in the history of the game. Looks good. He had a great spring to make this club. Kind of kidding him the other day, saying, Goose, don't you know how to pitch Brett yet? George Brett hit a home run to tie the game up on Wednesday night. Of course, those two had some great battles back in the late 70s and early 80s, and Brett still, a lot of people still remember that crushing home run he hit off the Goose, and Goose, hey, I threw it right in his wheelhouse, still doing it 12 years later.
And I grew up in Kansas City, and George Brett is one of my all-time favorite ball players, and I remember that well, and I remember the ceiling my head hit when Brett jumped on it. Here comes Frank Thomas.
Well, we talked
made some notes earlier in this
game.
Yeah,
we talked about how the A's were going to try to pitch Frank Thomas, and that's pounded in. Slazarski really pounded it in the third inning, hit Thomas in the shoulder. That wasn't what we had in mind. He's trying to get the inside part of the plate. Next time up, Slazarski went away from him. I don't know if he went away from his pitching friend or just was a little intimidated by Big Frank. And pretty much that entire at bat, he stayed away and walked him. So let's see what Goose does with him. Again, the scouting report is to try to pound him in. That's the book. Trouble with inside fastballs like to extend the arms. But if you stay in there too much and you don't have too much on the ball, he doesn't have any trouble with that at all. This guy is just a great young hitter.
Here's the 1-1 from Goose, and Frank Thomas swings right through it. And it's a ball and 2 strikes to Frank Thomas. You know, they pounded him with the hard stuff last year, and he said in batting practice, I would ask the BP pitchers to feed me hard stuff inside. I wanted to work on that.
Now, the big thing is he has the discipline most of the time to lay off it. He stands a long ways from the plate, and most of the time it's a ball.
2 balls, 2 strikes.
He had a good pitch to hit, but Goose just had some extra smoke on it. That 1-1 pitch was right down the horn, but Thomas swung through it.
Plenty of wingspan. Outside corner at the knees, and down goes Thomas. Let's go to Tom Mees.
Steve, Dave, one of the better performances of the night by Shane Mack of the Minnesota Twins. He had a great night at the plate, 4 for 5, couple of RBIs, home run, but he also had a great night in the field. Look at this catch off Jeff Houston of the Texas Rangers. Minnesota wins at 7-1 in great measure due to Shane Mack. You'll see the Rangers and Twins Sunday night, 8 Eastern time. Season premiere is Sunday Night Baseball. Steve?
Oh, what a great comeback for Mack after getting beamed the other night in Milwaukee. Come back, get 4 for 5 with a homer, a great play. Frank Thomas not too happy with Jim Evans' call.
And he could not get on base for George Bell.
Frank is saying the ball is too low. Strike zone is supposed to be the top of the knees. It's where it crosses the plate. Borderline. Probably too close to take.
And Goose getting George Bell way out in front of that one, has the count his way. No balls, 2 strikes. 2 outs. We're in the 8th inning, and the A's holding on to a 2-run lead on Chicago, 6-4.
Goose still no day at the beach for the right-handers. He has a problem. It's getting left-handed batters out, but the right-handers still have a lot of problems with that. Goose winds up and just cranks, coming a little bit from the side. He's no fun to look at.
Yeah, he's lost a little off his fastball, but you ask him, what are you throwing now? Hey, my out pitch is still the heat. And if you're a young hitter and you're stepping in, he still looks mean, doesn't he, Dave?
Yeah. Part of it's the psychology of it. He's one of the great guys in baseball, but it's better to be on his team than the other side.
Dennis Eckersley said it best. You know, when you don't have your best stuff, sometimes you got to fake it with body language.
Well, this guy, even when he didn't have his best stuff, could fake it with the best. 6 times he was on the mound when his team clinched the pennant. That's not too shabby.
Now the setup man for that man, Dennis Eckersley.
A's are 12 deep on their pitching staff. They only have 4 extra men. They have 12 pitchers, and Tony La Russa and Dave Duncan can work them about as well as anybody.
A ball, 2 strikes. Jamie Quirk saying, hey, I was so thrilled to come to the A's because I wanted to work with 2 of the best managers I thought were in the game. One, Whitey Herzog, the other, Tony La Russa.
Well, a lot of people think that Jamie Quirk is great managerial material. He's been in the game 20 years, and he just seems to have the perfect temperament and knowledge of the game.
I was visiting with him before the ball game, and I told him a statement that Tony La Russa said to me last year, that when Jamie hangs it up, there will be teams standing in line for his services. And I said, are you interested in coaching? He said, absolutely. I love this game. Here's the 1-2. It's away from Jamie. It's 2 balls, 2 strikes. Goose Gossage. He started his career with the Chicago White Sox, hard-throwing right-hander. Started for him, and then moved on to the Yankees, where he became the superstar closer in the American League. The 2-2. Again, Bell hanging in there.
Well, Goose Gossage certainly among the greatest of all the relief pitchers. You're looking at another guy that's a pretty good candidate for the Hall of Fame. Kind of numbers he's had over the course of his career. Raleigh Fingers #1. Jeff Reardon probably will go past him this year. Lee Smith and the Goose. Rich no longer the closer, but anytime you've got 300, that's not too shabby.
Well, he sent the count full to George Bell after jumping in front of him. No balls and 2 strikes. Bell telling me before the ball game, I have not changed American League, National League, back to American League. I'm still a free swinger, and he goes after ball 4 there and fouls it off.
Well, George has never taken too many walks. There's Vince Horstman warming in the bullpen, the left-hander. Due next is Donnie Pasqua, a left-handed batter. So if Bell reaches, we'll have to see what La Russa decides.
Bell skies one to left. Ricky Henderson back to the wall, and it is gone. A home run for George Bell. It's a 1-run game.
Well, George Bell swung at ball 4, fouled it off, and then finally got a pitch to handle and went deep.
His second home run with the White Sox has drawn Chicago within 1, and here comes Tony La Russa.
Well, this one up in the strike zone. Bell looking for the fastball, knowing that Goose has the luxury of a 2-run lead. Isn't going to walk him. Challenges and loses the battle.
Bell's home run brings on Vince Horstman and exit Rich Gossage. 6-5 A's. Steve Physioc, Dave Campbell back at the Oakland Alameda County Coliseum. 6-5 A's lead. Nobody on. 2 outs, but a run in on the George Bell home run. New pitcher is Vince Horstman, and he was brought on to face Dan Pasqua, and because of that, Gene Lamont countered with a right-handed swinging Mike Huff.
See Horstman's limited numbers in the major league with the Jays last year. Mike Huff platooning with Pasqua. Fouls one off. 1-1, 1-run ball game. In the last inning, that little bloop single that Jamie Quirk got gave the A's a little insurance run, and right now they need it.
He was claimed on waivers by the Jays March 20th. He made his A's debut Wednesday night, pitching 1 scoreless inning. Dave Duncan told us he has very good control of his fastball. Throws a breaking ball there that's fouled off. And the count goes 1 ball, 2 strikes to Mike Huff. And Huff got a chance to start 2 games down in California because they led off with a couple of left-handers. And he popped them for opening day 3 for 4 against Mark Langston. Stays away. Huff played a little bit with the Cleveland Indians last year and picked up by the Chicago White Sox. Told you about the 3 for 4 performance on opening day. He is 4 for 8 on the year. Pasqua went 0 for 3. Here's the 2-2. And driven to center field. Willie Wilson playing towards right. Will have to field it on a hop. And staying at first base is Mike Huff.
Well, scouting report says Huff hits it the other way, but he goes down and gets that low fastball, and Willie Wilson, playing him towards right center, does a good job to hold him to a long single.
And that gets Dennis Eckersley up, who was already gone 3 for 3 in appearances this year.
2 saves, and he pitched in that 13-inning game, went an inning and 2/3. So I know La Russa would like to get him a day where they don't use him. The A's do not have any off days the first 2.5 weeks.
Fastball by Vince Horstman as he works Ron Karkovice. Been on base twice, sold a home run his first time up off Joe Slosarski, struck out his second time and walked his last. Horstman with the 0-1. Breaking ball misses. A ball, a strike.
Key man right here, because Horstman, next 2 hitters coming up are scheduled to be left-handers, Lance Johnson and Ozzie Guillen. He can get Karkovice here, and Horstman can get the first 2. Could set up a pretty easy save situation for Eckersley. Come in and try to get a man or 2 out.
In there. 1 ball, 2 strikes. And Eck even saying and agreeing with La Russa when he said, hey, he wants to make him his 9th inning guy last year. With all the injuries they had to use Eckersley from the 8th on sometime. Well, Horstman has the count. 1 ball, 2 strikes to Ron Karkovice. Breaking ball misses high and inside. 2-2.
This is as far as Horstman wants to go right here. You go 3-2. You're going to start Huff off first base, can score on a double down the line or a gapper. So you want to make something happen. 2 balls, 2 strikes.
Huff not going anywhere but to move anyway. Honeycutt started the inning, got Robin Ventura on a ground ball. Goose came on, struck out Thomas. Bell hit a home run. And he misses inside. George Bell, who had worked the count 3-2 with Ruth Gossage, and then Bell fouled several off, and then homer to pull the White Sox to within 1. Now Karkovice has the count 3-2, and that was the count when he homered. There's George Bell.
See if Horstman challenges with a fastball. He's been trying to get a breaking ball over, can't throw it for a strike. Karko is looking dead red. He's looking fastball.
And he gets the breaking ball, and there is ball 4. So runners now on first and second. We've got SportsCenter coming your way next with highlight scores from throughout the major leagues. Gary Miller and Jim Bergamo tell you about the NHL strike. It is over. Masters highlights from day 2. And Joe Montana, first workout, was just south of us in San Jose, and they said it was a media circus. Montana threw in his first workout. It's Terry Steinbach, who was out tonight with the bruised wrist.
White Sox made it a habit last year coming from behind to win. In fact, this is only the 8th inning, but last year they came from behind 9 times in the 9th inning to win games. That was the most in the major leagues. So they've been known to battle back. You don't count this team out.
Two outs. There's Gene Lamont. All the activity started with 2 outs with the Bell home run, the Pasqua single, and the Karkovice walk. In there. A ball, a strike.
Gene's got that manager's posture, doesn't he? He looks like a baseball skipper. Of course, the White Sox, we mentioned earlier, complaining about their uniforms fitting too tight, especially guys that are a little bit bigger, like Frank Thomas and a guy like Gene Lamont. It's particularly unflattering.
Outside corner at the knees, 1-2.
Horstman's been able to get the fastball over, has not been able to get the breaking pitch over. Great fastball there, low and away. So he's ahead of Lance Johnson, 1-2. See if he can put him away here. Got ahead of Karkovice, 1-2, and then walking.
Runners at first and second. That man at second represents a tying run. The pitch to Lance Johnson is strike 3. Great pitch by Horstman. It gets out of the inning. The A's still holding on to a 1-run lead.
Here's at 0 4. Let's go back to Oakland.
And it was the Oakland A's, Tom, who started them off on their losing ways as Kansas City came in here and lost 3 straight. Oakland trying to make it 4 in a row as they're starting up with the Chicago White Sox. And there is the pitch from Vince Horstman as he gets Lance Johnson to end the top of the 8th inning. Huge pitch for the young player out of the Toronto Blue Jays organization.
Well, average Major League game has about 275 to 280 pitches, and to this point, that was the biggest pitch of the game. Young Horseman made a great pitch low and away to Lance Johnson. He almost got the edge 1-1. It was on the outside corner, and he went just a little further and struck him out.
Mike Pioff now takes over in right field for Dan Pasqua. As he pinch hit for him in that 8th inning. Upside corner. Ball, 2 strikes to Mike Bordick. Bordick singled back in the 4th when the A's came back, and his run came across on Lance Blankenship's single that tied the game at 4. And then Jose Canseco with the sacrifice fly in the 4th to play Blankenship, and the A's have led ever since. Dennis Eckersley continues to warm down in the Oakland bullpen.
See if Tony brings him on to start the inning. It might be predicated on what the A's do here in the bottom half. A left-handed batter, Ozzie Guillen leads off, and then it's a switch hitter, Tim Raines. Might decide whether he wants him to bat left or right.
Strike 3. Down goes Bordick. 1 out in the 8th. Well, this copyrighted telecast was presented by authority of Major League Baseball and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form without the express written consent of Major League Baseball. A 6-5 score. The A's lead the White Sox. And here's Lance Blankenship.
Big old country to all you insomniacs on the East Coast tonight. Let's see, 1:40 in the morning. Just the shank of the evening back east.
Sports Center coming your way next. Barry Miller and Jim Bergamo. And there's a breaking ball in there. 1 ball, 1 strike. Don Paul to Lance Blankenship.
Those hitters keep waiting for Donnie Paul to sneak a fastball by him. Paul will show the fastball. Very rarely throws it for strikes. You're going to see the hard splitter or the slow fork ball the majority of the time for pitches in the strike zone and just out.
Ground ball. Guillen. Boy, Blankenship is safe as Thomas had to come off the bag.
Well, Ozzie Guillen, who won the Gold Glove in this league for shortstop play in 1990, has not had a real stellar night defensively, and he kind of misplayed that ball, hung back a little bit, and then came charging, makes a bad throw. I'm sure he'll be hung with an error. Didn't get a good grip on it, but he did not.
Not been able to plate Ricky. Scored 105 runs last year. Pitch out. Nothing going on over at first base. Lance is very good speed.
Dave McKay, the first base coach, relays something to Blankenship.
Anderson checks his swing. He did not go around, says first base umpire Larry McCoy. As La Russa trying to get that run back that Goose Gossage gave away on the home run by George Bell. Closer to a 1-run game.
Talk about the patience of Ricky Henderson. Sees about 4.4 pitches per at bat. That was tops in the major league last year. So he really knows how to work a pitcher. Jim Evans rings it up. Ricky didn't like the call. 2-1. If you're going to play hit and run, now's as good a time as any. 1 out, good speed at first. Ricky looking for something to drill here. Look for Blankenship to run.
And Paul going over to first base.
I like Ricky Henderson, 2 balls, no strikes. La Russa probably was going to give him 1 pitch to go ahead and try to drive 1 deep. Wasn't going to take the bat out of his hands. 2-0, but 2-1. He's liable to start Blankenship here.
He's not going, and the pitch goes outside. It's 3 balls and 1 strike.
Okay, I bet half the mortgage he would run 2 and 1. I'll bet the rest of it he will run 3 and 1.
Is that your mortgage or Ricky's mortgage?
Yours.
Well, there's the count. 3-1, man on first base with the A's leading by 1 in the 8th inning. John Paul is coming home, and Blankenship doesn't go again, and it's 3-2.
Oh yeah, I forgot that one important thing. American League. I always say that when they don't run in the obvious situation. Oh, I forgot it.
All I know is, my wife is smiling because she does our books, and you're picking up this month's mortgage. Here's the 3-2. Blankenship is going, and it's fouled off. That's Blankenship, one of the only players in Pac-10 history to be all-league 4 straight years. Finally getting this chance at second base.
Now, one thing about Tony La Russa, kid once in a while about the American League. I mean, statistically, the National League teams steal about 35 bases more per team than American League teams, much more of a running league. But Tony La Russa knows the value of starting runners. He's proven that over the first 4 games and over the course of his managerial career. Try to upset the defense. Speed, an integral part of his managerial strategy.
Blankenship goes again. Henderson jumps on it, drives it to center field. Lance Johnson back to the wall, makes the catch. And Blankenship has to retreat to first base. I tell you, the last 2 days I have seen Henderson just scald the baseball, and all of that has resulted in outs.
Well, we'll talk about it over the course of our visit to Oakland. We'll be here many times during the summer, but this ballpark, fewer runs are scored in this park as opposed to games the A's play on the road than any other ballpark in the major leagues over the last 5 years. Jose Canseco, for example, 28 home runs last year on the road, only 16 here. Ball seems to hang in the air in the heavy air here at Oakland.
Yeah, you can see it in the day games and the night games when the temperatures cool a bit. Ball does not carry as well.
Well, some other things, huge amount of room in foul territory. A lot of balls in a lot of parks would be in the seats as a harmless foul, become outs here. The other thing is a lot of people have always thought this is one of the best pitchers' mounds to work on in the major league.
Wilson with a base hit to right. Blankenship has to stop at second base. So the A's now with 2 on and 2 out in the bottom of the 8th inning as Wilson comes through with the base hit. Blankenship to second base, and more action in the White Sox bullpen as Gene Lamont has asked Scott Radinsky to get up and start throwing.
Well, Radinsky's man would be the guy on deck, and that's Harold Baines. So if Canseco reaches, then Radinsky would come on to face Baines.
Willie Wilson has done a nice job in relief of Dave Henderson. And there's Harold Baines in the on-deck circle as Canseco steps in. Jose singled his last time and looks at a breaking ball that rests in the outside portion of the plate for strike 1.
This park has a negative effect of 14% on runs scored, and that's the biggest effect of any park in the major leagues over the last 5 years. But again, I mentioned this has really got that hit. A lot of pitchers think this is one of the great mounds to throw off in baseball. Every year, Dave Stewart and Bob Welch have had a lot better numbers at home than they have on the road.
2 outs, 2 on. 6-5 A's lead. 1-1 to Canseco. This is away and low. 2 balls and 1 strike. And Jose, he started off miserably last year. 226. 10 home runs, 35 RBIs, and June 10th, and 34 home runs at 87 RBIs the rest of the way. He started cool again. It's 3-1, and they were booing him, and then he caught fire. And, he doesn't even think about the fans anymore. And somebody said, hey, when Miami gets a franchise, that's where you're from. Would you like to go back there? And he said, hey, you think I get booed in Oakland? They'd be throwing hand grenades on me there.
Look out on this pitch. Let's see if Paul gets it anywhere close to the strike zone. This is the kind of guy Canseco can work on.
The 3-1. He misses. Ball 4. The bases are loaded for Harold Baines.
And Harold will be doing his work, I suspect, against Mr. Radinsky.
San Diego has beaten the Dodgers 8-3. Fred McGriff with a grand slam in that ball game. We'll have highlights coming your way on SportsCenter. Here it's the A's by 1. And the bases are loaded. A pitching change on as Radinsky is being called on by Lamont.
What used to be done the...
No place to put Harold Baines. Bottom of the 8th inning. Bases loaded. And Scott Radinsky, a big, strong left-hander, comes on to face one of the top RBI men in the game. 67 games last year. 2.02 earned run average. He had the 8 saves, but he also had 7 blown saves. And Baines fouls it off. He's in the hole. No balls, 2 strikes.
As you talk to left-handed batters in the American League, and Scott Radinsky is not one of their all-time favorites to run up there against. Big guy, 6'3", 200-plus pounds, kind of comes from Port Arthur with good stuff. I mean, this guy is ugly if you're a left-handed batter. He really ties lefties up.
And he's talking to himself out there on the mound.
Of course, if there's one guy that doesn't have too much fear against lefties, that's Harold Baines, who's standing at the plate right now.
The 0-2. Swing and a miss. Radinsky strikes him out on 3 pitches. And down go the A's. They leave the bases loaded. We head to the 9th inning. Oakland by 1.
When what you eat and drink upsets your stomach, you want a medicine that works differently.
ESPN Major League Baseball is brought to you by KC Masterpiece Barbecue Sauce. KC Masterpiece is barbecue. And by cold filtered Miller Genuine Draft and Miller Genuine Draft Light, taking the country by storm.
Steve Physioc, Dave Campbell at the Oakland Alameda County Coliseum. The A's with a 6-5 lead on the Chicago White Sox. Oakland left the bases loaded at the bottom of the 8th inning. So here we go to the 9th, and one of the best closers in all of baseball, Dennis Eckersley, to the mound for the 4th straight game.
King of the pen, Dennis Eckersley. What kind of numbers has he put together the last few years? 9 walks. Had a bad year last year. 87 strikeouts. He has been unbelievable the last couple of years.
But, you know, he even said about last year, he really thinks 75 innings is the max for any closer. He went 76 last year, and he says you walk a fine line, anything over that, and he is looking at that. I mean, a career high 67 appearances last year. He pitched 2 innings 9 times, and that equaled his total from the 2 previous seasons. Injuries.
One thing about Eck, he went 166 consecutive innings without walking the leadoff batter until September 13th last year, but I don't think he'll walk Ozzie Guillen, the toughest man in all of baseball to walk. Now, that's the best control pitcher against the toughest guy to walk, and he's got him 0-2. I will bet your mortgage once again that he doesn't walk Ozzie Guillen.
Okay, let's see. That'll be 2 months, right? Or is this double or nothing? A broken back. Past Eckersley. Blankenship gets his man 1 down. Tom Mees, what do you have?
All right, Steve, here we have an example how not to work at umpire. John Candelaria pitching to Fred McGriff tonight in San Diego. The count is 0-1. He wanted that pitch for 0-2. Gary Darling said no. And Candelaria, when he left the game, told Darling what he thought of it, and then proceeded to get thrown out. No matter, the Dodgers lost anyway, 8-3, the final score. Of course, Candelaria may have been miffed after giving up a grand slam to McGriff. Steve?
The crime dog is hot out of the gate. 6-5 here, Tom. Oakland with the lead, 1 down. Dennis Eckersley in the mound, and he will face Tim Raines and Steve Sachs. In there, strike 1. I mean, when you come to the plate against Dennis Eckersley and you're the batter, do you have to be prepared to swing the bat immediately? Because you're looking at 0-1 if you don't.
Yeah, you want to go after the first good pitch you can. This guy has proven that, hey, he's not going to walk people. You don't want to give him anything. Tim Raines last year had the best batting average against the Oakland A's of any team in the American League, 18 out of 42, a .429 average. So he was trouble for the A's pitching staff last year.
1-1. Misses high. 2 balls and 1 strike. Sports Center's coming your way on ESPN. We'll have all the highlights, the scores, and a look at the NHL hockey strike, which is history. Yes, we'll have the Stanley Cup. The 2-1 fouled off, 2 balls, 2 strikes. Eckersley got Guillen on a ground ball. Milwaukee has beaten California. The Angels start the year 0-4. Eck ready with the 2-2. Is he trying to come with that backdoor slider?
Yeah, he tried it once in the '88 World Series.
Good scouting report. Ooh. Kurt Gibson went deep. A's went down 1-0, and Oral Hershiser staring him in the face. And Oral was absolutely sensational in that World Series. The 2-2 to Tim. Made a nice one on the outside corner. 3-2.
Eckersley said he was working on a split finger pitch in spring training. He said he wanted something extra to combat the left-handed hitters. I asked Dave Duncan the night before the game, has he used it quite a bit? Looked at me and smiled. Wouldn't give me an answer.
Well, he comes at him with the fastball here, and the count remains 3 balls, 2 strikes.
In the day where all these players are watching television, they don't want to give away any of their secrets. Let's put it this way. Eck hadn't thrown a splitter so far tonight.
Dave Duncan with Tony La Russa.
Not a lot of room for error when you're Dennis Eckersley. Most of the time when you're in the situation or come into a game, you're in a situation where the game's on the line. If you have total confidence in a pitch, you'll use it, but it's not a real time to experiment in a 1-run game.
The 3-2. Raines looking for a pitch that he can drive, and just keeps himself alive. Again, the 3-2. And again, he checks his swing, and Jamie Quirk whipping him around. Asked for that baseball from Jim Evans. And, you know, visiting with Jamie today, I said, you know, you talk about Whitey, you talked about Tony being 2 managers you wanted to work with. What are their similarities? And he said, handling a pitching staff. He goes, I think Whitey and Tony are absolutely brilliant at handling staffs.
Boy, this is a battle between 2 great pros here. Timmy Raines long had a reputation for being a terrific clutch hitter in the National League. He and Eckersley are having a battle here. Eck doesn't want to walk him, doesn't want to put a guy with Timmy Raines' type of speed on, throwing strikes, and Raines keeps fouling him off.
Again, the 3-2, and Tim Raines going to the opposite field. On comes Ricky Henderson. He won't get there. A base hit, and the tying run is on first base with excellent speed.
Well, Raines just fought it off, but that was a titanic war between 2 great pros, and Raines got the best of it. Eckersley made him hit a tough pitch. Gets Raines to pop it up, but Timmy was able to fight it off just over Bordick. And here's Steve Sachs. Good hit and run man. Good guy to protect. Timmy Raines wants to take off for second. Remember, the White Sox had a propensity for coming back a year ago, the best in Major League Baseball.
Infield comes in a bit, looking for the double play, and Lansford at third base. Hugging the line, making sure no extra base hit.
Only chink in Eckersley arsenal may be the fact he doesn't hold runners very well. 8 out of 9 who tried to run were successful last year.
Raines had 51 stolen bases a year ago. He has 1 so far this year. Make that 2. He had 1 back in the 3rd inning.
In an answer to Gary Thorne's question of Wednesday night, you think the strike zone's getting a lot better? We're going to have faster games. Gary, the answer is no.
Sachs takes it low. Ball, no strikes. Tying run on first base. 1 out. Guillen started the inning with a ground out. Raines worked the count full to Eckersley, fouled off 3, and then popped 1 to left field for a hit.
One of the things that Steve Sachs brings to the plate in this situation is a guy who over the last 3 or 4 years, along with Willie McGee, has been the leading ground ball hitter. Why is that important? Well, if you start Tim Raines, you don't have to worry quite so much about lining into a double play. If he puts it on the ground, that would get Raines at least to second base, and plus you have the chance for the base hit.
Raines not going. 2 balls and no strikes. Eckersley in one of his rare situations where he was falling behind the count, was behind 2-1 to Tim Raines. Now it's the count 2 balls, no strikes to Steve Sachs.
Of course, the one thing that hurt Eck more than anything else last year was the home run ball. He coughed up 11. And again, Eck doesn't look like he has his real good stuff tonight, so he's going to have to be pinpoint.
He's got some power on deck. Robin Ventura and Frank Thomas. There's Robin. 23 home runs a year ago. Moving from the number 2 spot to the number 3. The 2-0. Stays high. Raines was going, and he has second base easily.
Again, Eckersley, I mean, for all of the things he can do well, he has a slow, deliberate delivery to the plate. I mean, no chance at all for Jamie Quirk. Tim Raines has a monstrous jump, but the high leg kick makes it quite easy for Raines to steal the bag. No throw.
Three balls, no strikes to Steve Sachs, who takes it 3-1. Again, Eckersley throwing Monday night the opener. They had Tuesday off, but then he threw again Wednesday and Thursday. Here's the 3-1. Misses outside, ball 4. So runners on first and second. And here comes Ventura and Frank Thomas.
Well, Tony knew he was taking a chance going to the well, and we have played 3 hours and a half to see Dennis Eckersley, perhaps the game's best closer, against Robin Ventura and perhaps Frank Thomas, who Sparky Anderson said earlier this year if he were starting a franchise, the first 2 players he would take would be Robin Ventura and Frank Thomas.
Gene Lamont. He has seen his club in just about every single magazine picked to win the American League West. And those 2 anchors are right there, and there's a line shot to right field. Canseco takes care of it and then rifles a throw back into second base. Raines has to stay put, and there's 2 out.
Well, for all the strategy, sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. I mean, Ventura hit a frozen rope right at Jose Canseco. So now it comes down to Eckersley and Frank Thomas for the ballgame. Talk about fastball getting ahead. Ventura was ready. He just creamed this ball. A low screamer, but right at Canseco. Well, let's see what Eckersley does. Ventura obviously frustrated. Robin, no, not the kind of guy that shows a lot of emotion. But we talked about what they're going to try to do to Frank Thomas all night long. Pound him in and then throw the slider down and away. But make sure you don't leave it out over the plate.
He's got 2 on. 0-1. You know, even in this situation, had they not had George Bell behind them, they may really work very, very gingerly. They will anyway, and there's a swing and a miss. 1 ball, 1 strike. But if Bell had not been in that 5 spot and had been someone else with the situation, let's say Sammy Sosa.
Walk Thomas? Yeah, I'd walk him right now. That's not taking anything away from Sammy Sosa, but Sammy Sosa strikes out an awful lot. This guy, pretty good clutch hitter, though. It makes a difference.
Strike 2. Eckersley challenge him right away. Let's see if we have that slider away.
But just to close out the thought, Sammy Sosa wouldn't be batting behind Frank Thomas, so you know, it becomes a moot point. He's beating with 2 fastballs. We'll see what he goes with.
Crowd on their feet, better than 30,000 on hand, hoping the A's can go 4-0 to start 1992. Dennis Eckersley, 43 saves last year. Working with Frank Thomas, runners on first and second. Raines at second base. He singled with one out, stole second, Saxford walked. Ventura lined out. Here's the 1-2. Struck him out. Dennis Eckersley nails down the save, his third of the year. Oakland wins 6-5. Joe Slusarski gets the win. The loss goes to Alex Fernandez. And the A's are 4-0 for the second time in their franchise's history. First time 1981, and there's Eckersley's strikeout pitch to Frank Thomas to nail down the 6-5 win. For Dave Campbell, I'm Steve Physioc. Sports Center's coming your way next.